Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto x possessive Anko konoha. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Stinkyhead and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. At 16 years old Mitarashi Anko was one of only two village pariahs in Konohagakure no Sado, or village hidden among leaves. As she walked down a semi-deserted street she heard yet another villager call her a whore before leaving with a sneer on their face. This wasn't anything new to her. Every day she was called a whore, a monster or a traitor because her ex-master, Orochimaru, had chosen to flee the village and become a missing nin. Most days she wished he had taken her with him, while on others she simply loved scaring the villagers and playing up to their thoughts of her. She wore a surprisingly soft black, custom-made, metal mesh body glove which left nothing to the imagination, a tan miniskirt which bordered on indecent, and a tan trench coat which reached her feet and barely covered her large breasts. She wore no bra and didn't even bother to shut her coat as she walked down one of the many streets of Konoha. Her purple hair was flipped up in the back and held with a metal band. She also wore her hit-8, which showed that she was a shinobi of Konohagakure, proudly across her forehead. Aside from this she only wore a pair of silver metal shin guards and a pair of black combat boots. All in all her appearance led people to believe she really was a whore even when she had done nothing to earn the title. As yet another person glared at her before walking away, she couldn't help but let her mask fall for a split second. Ever since Orochimaru had been discovered doing inhuman experiments on other people he had fled and left young Anko to face the village by herself, and even though she was loyal to Konohagakure, everyone hated her and simply waited for that traitor's whore to flee the village like her master had done. So to make it through the day she was forced to wear a fake smile as she walked through the village. The only real smile she ever offered was when she scared the villagers badly enough, or the sadistic smirk she often wore during the times she was called in to work on a friend of the village's. Unlike the second pariah, Anko was a full-trained shinobi and held the title of Takubetsu Jounin Special Jounin for her skills in torture, interrogation, and poison use, so most of the villagers were too scared to ever try to attack her. The very few times they had tried she had killed. Many of them were killed because Mitarashi Anko is a sadist and enjoys inflicting pain on others and messing with their minds, while still others were killed for something they said or done during the fight. Most of the shinobi believe that this is her way of getting back at the villagers for treating her the way they do, while still others simply believe she is crazy as hell. Anko herself is inclined to believe that both sides are right. Let it not be said that those skills were the only thing keeping the villagers at bay. Everyone knew that she was also a combat specialist who was very well versed in different types of snake jutsus. Sadly, unlike Anko, the second pariah was little more than a small 4-year-old boy who had no means of defending himself. As Anko walked towards the center of the village, Uzumaki Naruto ran for his life as yet another mob of shinobi and villagers chased him down. Naruto was very small for his age from living on the streets his entire life and only eating what others would throw away. His once bright blonde hair was matted with mud and dried blood from a previous beating that he had yet to wash out, and his bright blue eyes that should have shone with a childlike glee only showed just how lonely he really was. His small bloodied feet left small patches of blood on the ground as he ran because he had never owned a pair of shoes in his life. He wore a very large shirt that was so mangled and torn that it gave Anko a run for her money on how much skin it showed. He also wore a pair of ripped shorts that were tied around his tiny waist with a long piece of rope. His only possession in the world was clutched in his right hand as he tried to outrun the angry mob. This possession meant the world to Naruto. It was a badly ripped teddy bear he had found in someone's trash. This bear was his only friend and companion, it never beat him or called him names, and for that Naruto loved it. Most parents wouldn't let their children within 20 feet of the thing as it smelled worse than anyone could possibly believe and held all sorts of bugs and mold, yet still Naruto held onto it with everything he had. As his tiny legs began to tire, Naruto felt a sharp pain as a villager reached out, grabbed hold of his hair, and snapped his head back with a hard yank. "I've got you now, you little shit," shouted the villager before he smashed his fist into Naruto's tiny face. Naruto let out a whimper as the man threw him by his hair into the group of villagers and shinobi, while his mouth and nose and mouth began to bleed from the punch. "Please don't," he begged as the blood filled his mouth to the point where it was forced to run his chin. Before long it was near impossible for anyone to see anything but red surrounding the lips and chin of the boy as the bleeding from his nose and mouth finally slowed. "Shut up, demon," shouted one of the few shinobi in the group before he kicked Naruto in chest and stomach as hard as he could. This causing Naruto's stomach to heave and his merger lunch to spill across the ground before he curling into a tiny ball so that he could at least protect his stomach from any future beatings. Without any other warning the group began kicking and punching his small, whimpering form, while the ones that couldn't get to him themselves seemed content to cheer on those that could. As Anko walked up to the mass of villagers and shinobi, she couldn't help but wonder what was going on, and when she kicked something that had been left in the road, she began to feel sick. At her feet lay a small ratty teddy bear that had its left arm ripped off. She, like everyone else, knew very well whose this was and now knew who was in the center of this group, and when a small cry reached her ears, Anko's blood ran cold before it began to boil. With very little effort, Anko leaped into air and into the center of the group. Tears welled up in her eyes as the small boy latched onto her leg and pulled himself under her coat as he quietly cried for them to stop. "Leave now before I kill every one of you," she hissed. Everyone took a step back when they saw just how angry she was. They all knew that no one lived for very long if they pushed Mitarashi Anko too far, and by the look in her eyes, she was very far over the edge. "Look, the traitor's whore is protecting the demon," sneered a young and very stupid Chunin-rank shinobi. Anko gave a twisted smile that would cause even a battle-hardened Anbu to shudder. "You are going to die," she said in a creepy sing-song voice before flying through a few hand seals and shouting. Senijashu hid in Shadow Snake hand. As two large black snakes shoot out of her sleeves and sank their fangs into the man's neck and shoulder, all anyone heard was a slight whimper and the beginnings of a sentence before the man fell over dead and the snakes disappeared. "Anyone else want to die?" she asked happily as she pulled out a pair of kunai. Everyone watched as her eyes flashed with excitement and her tongue ran over her lips before they all lost heart and fled. Once everyone was gone, Anko looked down between her legs as Naruto held onto her legs and trembled badly. She then saw that even after the beating he had taken, he was holding onto the left arm of the teddy bear. Anko quickly spun on her feet and sat down on the ground before pulling the boy into her lap. When she felt him stiffen and tremble even more, she cooed in such a soft voice that anyone who knew her would have fallen over dead from the shock of hearing it. "There now. I'm not going to hurt you." The small boy simply curled up in her lap and shook like a frightened animal before whispering, "P promise." Anko smiled and ran her hand over his greasy, dirty, blood-filled hair and said, "I promise. Look, I even saved your bear." Naruto looked up and saw her holding his bear and cried, "Kuma-chan." Before grabbing it and hugging the nasty thing tightly to his chest. "You named your bear?" asked Anko lovingly as she rubbed his back gently while inside she was amazed that all of his cuts and bruises were already healing. She figured that it had to do with the reason everyone hated him. Uzumaki Naruto was the vessel for the greatest of the tailed beasts and the one responsible for nearly destroying Konohagakure and killing most of their shinobi population. Anko knew that Naruto wasn't the demon that most everyone else thought he was, and for that they tried to kill him and mistreated him. The saddest part was that Naruto had no clue why they treated him the way they did, because after the Yondaime Hokage had sealed the demon inside of him at the cost of his own life, the Sandaime Hokage had been forced to make a law forbidding anyone of speaking of it to the younger generations. Sadly, this included Naruto. The only reason Anko knew about it, all the facts that is, was because of her job. As a torture and interrogation specialist she learned many things from many people that she wasn't supposed to. She had been alive when the Kyuubi attacked and would have helped fight it if it hadn't been for the fact that she was still a week away from graduating from the academy. She, like everyone else, thought that Naruto was the demon reborn until the Sandaime Hokage sat her down with her first subject, who happened to be the first person to ever attack the poor boy. After that she had known that if Naruto was the demon he would have finished what he started long ago and would have never let the villagers treat him the way they did. Sadly, Naruto was Naruto, and how could a 4-year-old defend himself against shinobi and villagers that were much older and stronger? "Who are you?" asked Naruto softly as he looked up at Anko with bright blue eyes. "My name is Mitarashi Anko, and you are Uzumaki Naruto," she cooed gently. She paid no mind to the villagers and shinobi that were glaring at her as she sat in the center of the street. She then slowly began to wipe away some of the blood covering his mouth. "Why are you being nice to me?" he asked fearfully. "Because you have done nothing wrong," she said calmly before adding. "And because I am like you." How? "I am hated by most of the village for no reason, just like you. I have to deal with their name-calling and glares, just like you," she answered. "Why do they hate you? You're really pretty and nice," he said, this time without a stutter and in a much more cheerful tone. This amazed her to no end. How could anyone seem so happy after such an attack? How could anyone seem so happy after living the life he had been forced to lead? "I used to be a student of an evil man. He betrayed the village and became a missing nin, and everyone thinks I am the same," she said sadly. "What's a missing nin?" asked Naruto. "It's a shinobi who leaves their village without permission," she answered with a smile. "What's a shinobi?" asked the boy. Anko couldn't help but laugh as he asked question after question. "Being a shinobi is very complicated, Naru-chan. By definition a shinobi is an assassin or spy whom is highly trained for stealth and combat," she said calmly. "You mean you kill people?" asked Naruto nervously. He found it hard to believe that the one person who had been so nice to him killed people. Ironically ignoring the dead body not far from them. That is where it gets complicated. Yes, I kill people. She admitted. But mostly I do it to protect those I love and this village. I'll admit that I have killed someone for the simple fact of I wanted them dead. There are shinobi out there that will kill anyone, anywhere, and at any time. They simply love killing people. While others will only kill when they have to or when their village is threatened. Do you understand? I think so. He said softly. So you're not a bad person, you're just getting rid of the bad people. Close enough. Anko said with a light laugh. Anko ni cha an older big sister? Asked Naruto nervously. Yes, Naru-chan. She replied. Hey, are you going to leave me? He asked quietly. Anko had to strain her ears to hear him, but nonetheless she did hear him. No, Naru-chan, I'm not going to leave you. Why don't you come back to my place with me? She offered. She couldn't help but smile as Naruto's eyes light up brightly and he nodded his head quickly. Anko lifted him up so that she could stand before taking him by the hand and leading him away from the village. Naruto became confused and worried when they came to a huge fenced-in forest that had a large warning sign on it. I don't think we're supposed to go in there. He whispered softly as he moved inside Anko's coat and hugged her leg. He might not have known how to read, but even he understood the skull and crossbones very well. But I live in there. This place is called the Forest of Death now, don't be scared. She said as Naruto began to tremble slightly at the name. I'm not going to let anything hurt you, my little Naru-chan. We will be at my place before you can say ramen. But Rames started Naruto before he and Anko disappeared in a puff of smoke, only to reappear in the middle of the forest in front of a large tower. Wow. He cried excitedly as he looked around them and saw that they weren't where they were. How did you do that? He asked. That was an ninjutsu called Shunshin no Jutsu apostrophe body flicker technique. You learn it once you are in the rank of Chunin, but if you're good then I'll teach it to you sooner. She offered as she led a now bouncing Naruto into the tower and up to her floor. Anko was the only one who actually lived or wanted to live there, so the Sandaime Hokage had given her her own floor towards the top of the tower to turn into an apartment after her parents died. This, along with the training rooms and forest, meant that Anko had a very isolated place to live and train while not having to suffer because of the isolation. Does anyone else live here? Naruto asked as he walked up yet another flight of stairs. No. Most think I'm crazy for living here. Well, okay, I may be a little crazy, but normal is so boring. She stated while Naruto simply giggled at her. Anko ni-chan, can I be a shinobi? He asked. Of course you can. In fact, I'm going to train you myself. She answered. Really? Yes, really. I'll turn you into a Hokage. What's a Hokage? Asked Naruto. A Hokage is the strongest shinobi in the village. They control all of the other shinobi and send us out on mission and such. The Sandaime Hokage is a very nice man. I'll take you to meet him soon. She explained. Oh well, I'm going to be the greatest Hokage ever. He vowed as he pumped his tiny fist and bear into the air. Big words coming from someone with a teddy bear. Teased Anko. Shut up Anko ni-chan. Kuma-chan will help me become Hokage and then she will be my most trusted advisor. He stated firmly. Anko was a little shocked at the fact that he knew what an advisor even was, but the fact that he was planning on making his teddy bear his most trusted advisor caused her to laugh loudly. As she laughed she couldn't help but wonder when the last time she had laughed like this was. Anko ni-chan, why didn't you just do that flicker thing to your room instead of making me walk up these stairs? Asked Naruto weakly as his pace up the stairs was beginning to slow. Poor little Naru-chan. She teased before lifting him up onto her shoulders. That better? Yep. He said happily as laid his head down on top of hers. And to answer your question. I have traps set up in my apartment and if I tried to do the flicker thing as you called it, I would set them off. People can leave doing it but not enter. She explained softly before she felt Naruto's head nod against hers. She didn't say anything, but she was having a hard time not gauging at the poor boy's smell. She knew he hadn't been given a chance to bathe in a long time, if ever, unless one counted being thrown into a puddle as a bath. Finally, she had made it to her floor and as she opened the door and stepped in, Naruto's head shot up and looked around. Contrary to popular belief, Anko's home was pretty normal. There were no implements of torture laying around and blood wasn't sprayed all over the walls. There was a couch, a pair of overstuffed chairs and a few tables. The kitchen was a normal everyday kitchen with a stove, sink, refrigerator, and cabinets. There was also the few odds and ends that Anko had placed around the rooms, a few pictures of some of her friends, and a few bookshelves filled with different scrolls and thick leather-bound books on many different topics. As Naruto was lowered to the floor his calloused feet made contact with the soft tan carpet that covered Anko's floor. This feeling was amazing to him as he was used to walking over rocks and glass in his bare feet. Anko noticed a dreamy smile on his face as he wiggled his toes in her carpet and couldn't help but give a dark humorless laugh. The poor thing probably thinks that carpet is Kami's gift to man. She thought as the boy squatted down and ran his fingers over the soft material. "Naru-chan, how would you like a bath?" she offered. "Do I smell?" he asked softly as he hung his head and looked at the carpet. "Yes you do, but it's not your fault. Why don't you come with me and we'll get you cleaned up?" she said gently as she reached her head out for him to take. Naruto simply nodded his head and took her hand before he was led down a small hallway and into one of the 4 doorways, which turned out to be a bathroom. As he looked around he saw a very large bathtub in one corner of the room and a small shower in another. There was also a sink with a very large countertop and a huge mirror on the wall and a toilet. Like the other rooms, this one was also filled with some of Anko's personal items, as well as a lot of candles. As she started to run the water in the bathtub, Anko turned to Naruto and found him looking around the room with the same wonder written across his face that he had in the other rooms. "Now, do you think you can wash yourself?" she asked calmly while inside she was hoping he could. She was only 16 years old and it seemed like she had just became a Kaizen mother, and when Naruto shifted uncomfortably she sighed and said, "Come here." Naruto walked up to her and soon found himself standing naked in front of his new Nichan. She then lifted him up and placed him into the warm water. Naruto sighed happily as the warm water began to wash away the caked-on dirt and blood from his body. As she began to scrub the boy she couldn't help but say, "I swear you have more dirt on you than any Iwanin I've ever met." "What's Iwanin?" asked the boy before he was dipped under the water. Iwa is a shortened name for Iwagakure no Sato or village hidden among rocks, and Iwanin is simply a shinobi from Iwagakure. She explained absently as she continued to scrub away the filth from the small child. "Where's that?" asked the inquisitive blonde. "It's in Earth Country. Iwagakure is one of the 5 great shinobi villages. They specialize in earth-based jutsus. In the past we have had many wars with them, and in one of those wars is when the Yondaime Hokage gained the name, the yellow flash of konoha," she stated proudly as she began to wash his hair for what seemed like the 100th time. She was amazed and disgusted by the amount of dirt and blood the boy's hair held, and each time she washed it, it seemed to get longer and longer. Most of the hair was still matted down, and it was already down to his neck. "Anko-ni-chan?" "Yes. Can I stay with you?" asked the boy pleadingly. "We'll see, Naru-chan," she said softly. It took 2 hours and 10 different baths before Naruto was finally clean, but now that he felt better than he ever had in his short life, and it showed as he smiled brightly at his Nichan as she dried him with a large fluffy towel before exiting the room for a moment. She returned shortly after with one of her old shirts, which seemed to be very old since it looked no different than any other shirt a villager would wear and didn't show any unnecessary skin. As she slipped the white button-up shirt over his head, she pulled his tiny arms through the sleeves and watched in amusement as it fell down to his ankles. "Come with me," she said as she took him by the hand and led him into her bedroom. This room, like the others, would have shocked anyone. It was painted in a light blue color, as opposed to the white paint of the rest of the apartment, and contained a large bed, a dresser, and a large closet where Naruto noticed there were many metal mesh body gloves hanging up. "Come on, Naru-chan," Anko said softly as she gently tugged his arm before leading him over to the bed. Anko slid into her bed and sat up against the headboard as she lifted Naruto up into the bed and sat him down in between her legs, facing out. Reaching to her bedside table, Anko grabbed a brush and began brushing his hair, which now fell to the middle of his back and was as bright a yellow as any flower she had ever seen. It took a long time before she was able to brush out all the knots and tangles, but when she was done she started to feel envious of the small boy's hair. "Done," she said happily as she slid down in her bed and pulled Naruto into her arms. "Thank you, Ni-chan," Naruto said softly as he fell asleep. "You're welcome, Naru-chan," she said to the sleeping boy before closing her eyes and falling asleep herself while holding Naruto tightly to her chest. As the sunlight poured into her room, Anko was woken by the sound of Naruto's soft snores from underneath her coat. Normally she would have taken it off, but last night she had been tired and fell asleep in it. She gave a light chuckle as the demon vessel snuggled in even closer to her and resumed snoring. "What am I going to do?" she asked herself as she laid in bed and thought about Naruto. She stayed like this for a few more hours until Naruto began to stir. She watched as Naruto crawled out from under her coat and arched his back and stretched. Just like a little fox. She thought with a smile as the boy yawned silently before smiling brightly at her. "Morning, Anko-ni-chan," he said happily. "Good morning, Naru-chan," Anko replied softly. "Why don't we get something to eat and after I'll take you to go see the Hokage." "Okay," shouted the blonde before he jumped off of the bed and ran out of the room. Anko took the time to take a quick shower and change before she walked into the kitchen to find Naruto waiting for her. Anko ni-chan, where can I get a coat like yours? He asked happily as Anko lifted him up to sit on the counter as she began making a quick breakfast for the two of them. Well, if you want we can go get some cloths before we go and see the Hokage. She offered. I don't have any money. He said quietly as he hung his head. Anko walked over to him and placed her hands on each side of him on the counter and said. Naru-chan, you are 4 years old. No one in their right mind would expect you to have money. When we go out later I'll buy you some cloths. Okay. Naruto looked up at her and smiled before wrapping his arms around her neck and hugging her tightly. Thank you. You're welcome, my little Naru-chan. She replied and with that she turned back to the food and resumed cooking. Naruto watched with wide eyes and a lot of drool as Anko finished the meal and set a plate of food in front of him. She had moved him to the kitchen table when the food was almost done. As Naruto lifted some eggs into his mouth he moaned and said. This is really good. I would think so after having to eat garbage. Thought Anko as she watched in awe as Naruto ate every single bit of his food in the time it took her to finish her third bite. She then noticed that Naruto began to rub his stomach and figured that he wasn't used to eating that much and had given himself a stomachache. Next time you shouldn't eat so fast. She said with a smirk. I don't want to next time. He replied pitifully while Anko couldn't help but laugh at the boy. Anko ni-chan, where is Kuma-chan? Kuma-chan is in the laundry. She is very dirty and needs to be cleaned and also I need to sew her arm back on. Explained Anko. She had really wanted to throw the thing away but knew she couldn't do that to Naruto so she planned on washing it as best she could and sewing it back together. Good. She needs to be clean if she is going to be my top advisor. Stated Naruto firmly while Anko smiled fondly down at him. Since your old cloths were nothing more than rags. You are going to wear that shirt until we can get you some new cloths. She said. Okay. Said Naruto simply as he swung his little legs back and forth as he sat beside Anko waiting for her to finish her food. Before long Naruto was in the arms of Anko as she ran across rooftops towards the store she wanted to take him. You know, the people who run the store we are going to are good friends of mine and they have a MUSUME daughter who's about your age. Anko commented calmly. Do you think she'll play with me? Asked Naruto excitedly as Anko continued to race across the rooftops of homes and businesses alike. Who wouldn't want to play with you? Anko asked him as if it were obvious. Naruto simply smiled and waited for them to arrive at the shop. He didn't have to wait long before they were standing in front of a 2-story building with a sign that read Amaki's weapons hanging above the door. As they entered it was plain to see that this store was purely a shinobi store, seeing as all they sold were shinobi weapons of all kinds and shinobi clothing of all sizes. Henshin, Emi. Get out here, I need your help with something. Anko shouted once she saw that no one was watching the front. Anko, shut up. Came her reply while Naruto giggled at her and Anko simply shot him a smile. Hi. Came a bright voice from behind them. Naruto jumped and spun around to find a young girl about his age standing there. The girl was wearing a pink traditional style Chinese shirt made of silk yongsam. She had rich brown hair and equally dark eyes. Her hair was pulled into 2 separate buns and her eyes seemed to shine with happiness and contentment. She also seemed to be carrying a large assortment of weapons. Too large if you asked any normal citizen of Konohagakure, even some of the shinobi would agree as well since the small girl was barely 5 years old. Hello. Said Naruto shyly as he moved into Anko's coat and hid behind her legs. Tenten, I want you to meet Naruto. Naru-chan, this is Amaki Tenten. Her parents run this store. Introduced Anko as she tried to coax Naruto from behind her. Just as she began making progress, a large man walked into the room. What do you need, Anko? The man asked. He looked like a hulking male form of Tenten from what Naruto could see, which wasn't a lot because he had moved back behind her legs when the man entered the room. I need an outfit for Naru-chan here. She said softly as she gently pulled Naruto out from behind her. This seemed to work as long as she held his hand. Is that started the man? Yes Kenshin, this is Naruto. Naru-chan, this is Amaki Kenshin, Tenten's 2san father and the best blacksmith in the whole village. His OKUSAN wife, when referring to someone else's, Emi used to babysit me and when my parents died she become a very good friend. Said Anko. Naruto looked at the tall muscular man and said. Hello. Well Naruto, what kind of cloths are you wanting? Kenshin asked. Naruto smiled and pointed at Anko before saying. I want to look like Anko ni-chan. You can't wear a skirt silly. Said Tenten with a giggle. I didn't mean that. I want pants but the rest like hers. He said with a faint blush. Why would anyone want to look like Anko? Asked a brown-haired woman as she walked into the room and smiled at Anko and Naruto. Because Anko ni-chan is the greatest shinobi ever. Plus she's really pretty. Said Naruto loudly while Anko patted him on the head fondly. She was happy to see that he was opening up more to people. The woman looked at Naruto for a few moments before looking back at Anko and asking. How much did you pay him to say that? Anko growled and said. Shut up, Emi. Well, let's get you dressed. Said Emi as she and Anko took Naruto by the hand and began to shuffle through the stacks of cloths. They soon found that when Naruto had said that he wanted to look like Anko, he meant it. Every article of clothing had to match hers exactly or he wouldn't touch it. Before long Naruto was wearing a pair of very baggy tan pants with more pockets on them than he knew what to do with, a pair of black combat boots, a black metal mesh shirt, a pair of silver metal shin guards, and a long tan-colored trench coat, which was easily his favorite part. The last thing they did was tie his hair back into a low ponytail. The only thing missing was for him to get a forehead protector, but that would have to wait until he became a genin. They also told him that he would have to cut his hair to look like Anko, but he said, quite loudly, that he was fine with that if it made him look more like his Ni-chan. There. Now you look just like you Ni-chan, said Emi happily while Anko and Naruto smiled brightly at that. Ever since they had met yesterday, both of them had smiled more in the short time they had known each other than they had in their life before they met. Now, why don't you go find Tenten-chan and play while I talk to Anko? Naruto nodded before hugging Anko once more and running off to find the small girl. How did this happen? Asked Kenshin as he brought in a large bottle of sake and 3 small dishes. At the thought of the memory, Anko quickly downed 2 dishes full of sake. That bad? Asked Emi softly. Worse. I found him in the middle of another mob getting kicked and punched. When I finally chased everyone away he was covered in blood, bruises, and cuts. If any good came from him being a vessel it's the fact that he heals very quickly. After I spoke with him for a bit, I took him back to my place and spent around 2 hours washing him. He had dirt and blood everywhere from Kami knows when. You should have seen his face when he first stepped foot on my carpet. Said Anko with a sad, humorless laugh towards the end. I swear he must have thought that it was the greatest thing ever. Then there is Kuma-chan. Kuma-chan? Asked Kenshin. His teddy bear. She replied. He named his teddy bear Bear? Asked Emi with a smile. That's what I asked, but Kuma-chan isn't just any bear. She is going to be his most trusted advisor when he becomes Hokage. Said Anko before the 3 of them burst into peals of laughter. Meanwhile Tenten was outside teaching Naruto how to throw a kunai. Now pull at your arm back good. Now throw it as hard as you can and try and hit the red dot. She advised as she pointed across the yard at a row of humanoid dummies. Naruto looked at the practice dummy and saw the red dot right between his eyes. He simply stared at it for a few more moments before launching the kunai as hard as he could at the dummy, and as it hit home, Naruto and Tenten were shocked that it tore right through the bullseye and out the other side of the dummy's head. Wow. Whispered Tenten in awe. That was so cool. Naruto shouted excitedly. From there, Tenten and Naruto began to let loose a hail of kunai and shuriken upon the poor defenseless dummies. Naruto found that he could throw up to 5 kunai and have them all hit dead center, while 9 out of 10 at least hit the target. He wasn't anywhere near as good with a shuriken, but he didn't let that stop him from trying. You're a natural with projectile weapons. You have to come over some more and play with me. Tenten pleaded as they walked back inside. I will if you really want me to. Said Naruto shyly. You bet I do. None of my friends like weapons very much so it's nice to have one that does. She said happily. Plus, when we get older me and you can spar all the time. Okay. He replied softly as the 2 walked up to the 3 older people. Did you have fun? Asked Anko as she pulled Naruto into her lap. Yes, we practiced throwing shuriken and kunai. He answered with a smile. Is he any good? Kenshin asked his daughter. He's amazing. His very first throw with a kunai hit the dummy right between the eyes and went all the way through its head. She explained happily while Kenshin, Anko, and Emi looked at a now blushing Naruto in shock. Can you do it again? Asked Anko. Naruto hopped down from her lap, took hold of her hand, and drug her to Tenten's backyard where the training dummies were set up. As Naruto walked off the distance he wanted, the other 4 stood back and watched him. Finally, Naruto reached a distance he was comfortable with and pulled out a kunai that Tenten had given him before turning and facing the dummy. Naruto stared the dummy between the eyes, just like he had done the first time before throwing the kunai as hard as he could. The 3 older shinobi watched the kunai rip through the dummy's skull and out the other side before they finally let their jaws drop. They were amazed with the fact that he was so accurate yet so powerful with his throws. Tenten of course simply cheered her new friend on like she had done before. You had better have that boy training very soon or you are never allowed around here again. Threatened Kenshin before his Kanai wife, your own, slapped him hard on the arm and hissed. He is 4 years old. Let him have a childhood and if he wants to train then fine. He wants to be a shinobi. That I already know. I plan on teaching him everything I know as soon as he wants to begin training. Said Anko softly as a way to appease the irate Akisan and also inform Kenshin that she did plan on training him. Now, a more important question would be, when do we start planning a wedding? Henshin and Emi looked over at their Musume, who was talking excitedly to Naruto while flailing her arms everywhere. Naruto began to blush under the praise, but still he smiled happily at the excited girl. It's a bit early for that. We can start talking weddings in 30 or 40 years. Said Kenshin while giving the typical 2-cent answer. Try telling her that. Said his Kanai with a smile. So, was clothing the only thing you two were out for? No. We are going to see the Hokage next. Anko replied. Any reason? Kenshin asked. There may be a few. I'll let you know how everything turns out later. Anko answered, who sounded a little nervous before adding. Well, if we're going to get in to see him then we need to get going. True. Agreed Emi with a small smile. Naru-chan, it's time to go. She called over to the blonde boy. The two were finally able to leave after Naruto gave Tenten his 10th promise that he would be back. As they began walking towards the Hokage tower, Naruto was talking a mile a minute about Tenten and everything she taught him. Neither paid any attention to the glares they were getting from the villagers and the worried looks the shinobi were giving Naruto. They saw him dressed like a mini Anko and were getting worried that there would be a second one, and to them Konohagakure could only handle one sadistic lunatic. Right before they reached the tower, Naruto and Anko passed a small park that was popular with the main clans of Konohagakure. They felt that it was safe to bring their children here because it was so close to the Hokage's office and there were shinobi of every rank coming and going at all times of the day. "Ni-chan?" asked Naruto shyly as he tugged on Anko's coat to gain her attention. When he saw her looking at him he asked. "Can we go play?" As he pointed to the many swings in the park. "I tell you what, why don't you go play while I speak with the Hokage for a little bit and I'll come find you after I'm done. I might even come get you early so you can meet the Hokage," she offered gently. "Okay," said Naruto happily before he hugged her legs tightly before running off towards the swings. Anko watched with a smile before turning back to the tower and continuing to walk. Just as Naruto was about to reach the swings he heard a slight whimper. He knew that sound better than anyone so he quickly looked around to see who needed help. He soon found a group of 3 older boys standing around a small dark indigo-haired girl while they pushed her to the ground and called her names. "You wide-eyed freak. You think you're so much better than us because you're a Hyuga, don't you?" shouted one of the boys as he pushed the girl to the ground again. Please, stop," said the girl softly as tears ran down her face. After seeing this, rage overwhelmed Naruto and with a feral growl he took out his kunai and charged the boys. As he reached them, Naruto jumped into the air and kicked the one he had seen pushing the girl as hard as he could in the side of the head. Everyone in the park stopped at the sound the collision made and watched as the boy was knocked off his feet and flew a good 5 feet before falling limply to the ground. "Leave now before I kill every one of you," he said, repeating the words he heard Anko use when she saved him the night before. By now the boy he had kicked had finally regained his feet and was stalking towards Naruto. Seeing their friend back on his feet seemed to give the other two added courage, so they too moved towards Naruto. As the first boy tried to punch him, Naruto dodged to the side and slammed his kunai into the back of his hand. This shocked everyone around them. They had just seen a 4-year-old boy shove a kunai through the older boy's hand without even blinking. "I told you to leave," hissed Naruto as he ripped his kunai out of the boy's hand. "Yuji, get him," ordered the boy as he cradled his bleeding hand against his chest. The other kids in the playground and a few adults watched as the 2 other older boys moved towards Naruto, but the blonde boy never gave them a chance. With 2 swift kicks to a very sensitive area, the boys collapsed to the ground and cried. Let it not be said that one needs years of training to take down someone larger than oneself. Seeing that the boys were done, Naruto turned back to the Hyuga and asked. "Are you alright?" "Why yes," stuttered the girl softly as she took Naruto's offered hand and rose to her feet. Thank, why you? "I'm Uzumaki Naruto. What's your name?" he asked as the 3 boys began to crawl away from them. Hyuga H. Hinata," she replied as she nervously tapped her index fingers together. "Do you want to go play on the swings with me?" asked Naruto with a bright smile. The shy girl only blushed and nodded, but that was all Naruto needed as he grabbed her hand and pulled her over towards the swings. Sadly, they were never given the chance to actually swing as one of the boys' Kase and mother started running towards Naruto with a large stick. I better go, Hinata-chan," said Naruto quickly before running from the mammoth woman. Luckily for him the woman was very out of shape and gave up the chase just as she reached the swings. As Naruto ran towards the Hokage's office as fast as he couldn't help but wonder if the pear-eyed girl would ever play with him again. Any further thought was interrupted as he rounded a corner and headed straight into a smirking Anko. "Naru-chan, what's wrong? Is it another mob?" asked Anko worriedly. "Why yes," he said as he gasped for breath. Anko didn't waste any time as she quickly picked up the boy and ran back towards the Hokage's office where they were quickly let in by his secretary. The Sandaime Hokage was a little shocked to see Anko walk into his office with a little blonde-haired male version of herself in her arms. "You look worried, Anko." "There was another mob, Hokage-sama." She answered with a sigh as she sat down heavily into one of the 3 chairs across from the Hokage while Naruto sat in her lap and looked at the man with interest. "Anko Ni-chan, you told me that the Hokage was the strongest shinobi in the village. This guy is so old," he said finally after staring at the man for a few moments. Instead of being insulted, the elderly Hokage laughed at this while Anko hid her face behind Naruto and giggled. "Naru-chan, this man may be old, but he is very strong," she said softly. Naruto stood up in her lap and pointed at the Hokage and shouted. "Hokage Ai-san. When I grow up I'm going to be the Hokage and when I do I'm going to send you to a old people's home." At this declaration the Hokage smiled at the boy and said. "When you're ready to take the title of Hokage from me, then I'll give it to you without any hassle. Now, Naruto, do you like staying with Anko?" Naruto sat back down and looked at Anko for a moment before saying. "She's my Ni-chan, I love staying with her." "Naruto, how would you like to live with her from now on?" asked the old man. "Can I really?" asked Naruto as hope shined brightly in his bright blue eyes. "Anko wishes to adopt you," answered the Hokage. At this, Naruto jumped to his feet and threw his arms around Anko's neck and began to cry. Anko smiled happily and wrapped her arms around his tiny waist and hugged him tightly. "So is that a yes?" she whispered. "Why yes," he said as he wiped his runny nose on his coat sleeve. "Will you be my Ni-chan still, or will you be my Ka-chan like mother but less formal, think mommy?" "Ni-chan. Ka-san makes me sound old," said Anko as she scrunched up her nose at the thought of being old. "Will me name change?" he asked. "Only if you wanted to. Would you rather be Uzumaki Naruto or Mitarashi Naruto?" she asked calmly while inside she knew which one she wanted him to pick. "I want to be Mitarashi Naruto," he shouted excitedly while Anko smiled happily at his choice. Before they could do anything else, a familiar mammoth of a woman stormed into the office as she drug her Musuko's son in behind her, ignoring the shouting guards and secretary. The woman stormed right up to the Hokage's desk and shouted. "I demand that you do something about that thing right this minute." The Hokage must have gotten this a lot because all he did was sit back in his seat and twine his fingers in front of his chin and asked in a calm voice. "May I ask what he has done?" "That little monster stabbed my baby boy with a kunai for no reason," shouted the woman. "And when I tried to catch him he ran off." At this Anko looked at Naruto, who was standing in the chair with his arms wrapped around her neck, and said. "I thought you said there was a mob." Naruto snickered a little and whispered loudly. "I thought you said blob." This got a laugh out of Anko and the corners of the Hokage's mouth to twitch. "Naruto, why did you stab this young man?" asked the Hokage. "He was being mean to Hinata-chan," accused Naruto. "You little liar. My Musuko told me he was playing quietly with his friends when you ran up and stabbed him," the woman yelled. By now Anko had had enough of the woman's shrill voice so she said. "If you don't shut up or at the very least speak in a normal tone, I will slit your throat." The woman blanched before she sat down quietly in the chair furthest from Anko. "Miss, I happen to know what happened at the park because I have Anbu watching it at all times," said the Hokage calmly while the boy paled and started looking nervous. "I happen to know that your Musuko and 2 of his friends were bullying Hyuga Hinata before Naruto showed up. After he told them to leave your Musuko attacked him. Good job, by the way," whispered Anko with a sadistic smirk. "Thanks," Naruto whispered back. "And while Naruto might have held off on stabbing the boy, he did nothing wrong," finished the Hokage. The boy's Ka-san shot her Musuko a look that made him sink into his chair even further before turning back to the Hokage and saying. "Please excuse me, Hokage-sama." She then stood and dragged her Musuko out of the office by his cut hand. As the doors shut the Hokage sighed and shook his head. "Naruto, I did see the fight and I was wondering if you would like to enter the academy early." Naruto's eyes light up with excitement but Anko quickly stepped in and said. "No thank you." "But why?" whined Naruto. "Don't whine Naru-chan," Anko said softly. "And I want to take you on as an apprentice until you graduate. This way you can go to the academy like you normally would, but you would be my student until you become a genin." "Can we start now?" asked Naruto as he jumped up and down in the chair. "As soon as you want," she answered. "Now, go wait for me out front." Naruto hugged her before running out of the office. "Are you sure this is what you want?" asked a Hokage as he handed Anko the adoption papers and a second stack of papers to make him her apprentice. "Yes. He needs someone as much as I do," she said softly as she started signing the papers. "Besides, you saw the way he was dressed. He wouldn't even touch anything if it didn't match my cloths and as for teaching him. My style is a very demanding style to learn, but I think he will really excel at it. Are you going to teach him everything? He asked calmly. As his master mistress whatever, I can teach him anything I feel he should learn. She said a little defensively. Anko, I didn't mean it like that. Said the Hokage with a small smile. I meant are you going to teach him jutsus well past genin and academy level? Also, you would be his mistress. Sorry. She said sheepishly. The Hokage was one of the only people who was ever kind to her, so she had the utmost respect for him. To answer your question. Yes, I plan on teaching him as fast as he can learn, and I don't plan on holding anything back because of age or rank. Could this be because you want him to excel at the academy? Asked the Hokage teasingly while Anko's cheeks flushed a little. Maybe a little. He will be in a class with many of the heirs and heiresses of the major clans. If I don't teach him then he will be going into the academy at a disadvantage. She explained while the Hokage nodded his head and agreed with her reasoning. Also, he would suffer without anyone around to help him. I understand Anko and if you need anything don't hesitate to ask. Said the kind elderly Hokage. Then I'll be looking for you when I need a babysitter. She joked as she finished signing the papers and left the office of a now slightly worried Hokage. As she exited the tower Anko found her new Touto younger little brother outside, pretending to be in the middle of a large battlefield. She couldn't help but laugh when Naruto was killed most kids imagine themselves as the hero, but you have yourself dying early in the battle. She teased as Naruto jumped to his feet and ran up to her smiling. But I was fighting off an army of evil Hokages. He stated as Anko took his hand and began walking back to their apartment. Why were they evil? She asked. They kidnapped you and wouldn't give you back. He explained. So you died trying to save me? Asked Anko as she smiled. Of course, but once you train me to be a shinobi I'll be able to save you and live. He said proudly. A worthy goal. She teased as she patted him on the head fondly. As they started to walk past a small stand an older man shouted. Anko. When are you going to stop by again? You know we need the business. Anko smiled at the man before looking down at Naruto and asking. Are you hungry? When Naruto nodded his head quickly, Anko led him into the small stand and lifted him up into one of the chairs around the counter. Tucci, you old fart, how have you been? Asked Anko while the old man smiled at her and Naruto giggled at the name. I'm as good as can be expected, but the more important question is who is this? He asked as he looked down at Naruto. It is Mitarashi Naruto, my new Tauto. She said proudly. Naruto huh? Said the man as he studied Naruto for a few moments. Tell me Naruto, do you like ramen? What's ramen? He asked with a confused look. The man looked about ready to have a heart attack before shouting. Start boiling water. He then walked away muttering things like he's never had ramen and I'll show him. This confused Naruto even more until Anko said. Nari-chan, Tucci owns and runs this stand which is a ramen stand. After I bugged him enough he started making dango and sweet bean soup as well, but the man swears that ramen is the cure to all problems. His Musume, who's about 12 years old, helps him a lot and makes very good dango, which is my favorite food along with sweet bean soup. Is ramen good? Asked Naruto. Yes it is and Tucci makes some of the best ramen you will ever have. She stated firmly. A few minutes later the old man came back with a large bowl of beef ramen and a large plate filled with dango. Here you go. He said as he set the food in front of the two. Naruto stared at the bowl filled with noodles and broth before taking a tentative bite. As the noodles and broth filled his mouth, Naruto's eyes went wide before he shivered and began shoveling the food into his mouth. Anko watched and laughed as yet another person was made into a ramen addict by Tucci's ramen. Shaking her head slightly, Anko began to eat the sweet-tasting dango in front of her, and before long the two had eaten everything within arm's reach. Most of this was done by Naruto. Just like at breakfast Naruto had eaten too much, too quickly and was now holding his stomach and groaning. I thought you said that you weren't going to do this again. Asked Anko who seemed to think that this was all very funny. Ramen good. He mumbled while Anko and Tucci simply laughed at the blonde boy while Tucci's Musume gave him a sympathetic look. Anko stood and took out some money for the food, but as she was about to lay it on the counter, Tucci stopped her. Technically you never ordered anything so I can't charge you. Besides, with the way he ate that bowl of ramen, I believe that he will be coming back frequently. He said with a smile. Thanks Tucci. Said Anko as she put her money back in her pocket before picking up Naruto and placing him on her shoulders. Ready to go, Nari-chan? Yes. He answered softly as he laid his head on hers like he had done the night before. As they started back to the apartment Anko began thinking about Naruto's fight with the older boys. She knew for a fact that the boy he had stabbed was in the Shinobi Academy and it was more than likely that his friends were as well, and the fact that Naruto was able to beat them without a mark to show for it made Anko even more excited to begin training him. Nari-chan? She asked. Yes, Ni-chan. What exactly happened with the Hyuga girl? She asked calmly. I was getting ready to start swinging when I heard someone whimpering. When I looked around I saw 3 older boys knocking Hinata-chan down and calling her names, so I ran over there and kicked one of them on the head before telling them to leave. When they didn't, the one I kicked tried to punch me so I moved and stabbed his hand with my kunai. He then told the other 2 to get me, so I kicked them between the legs. Said Naruto happily while Anko couldn't help but smile sadistically at the last part. And when me and Hinata-chan were about to go play on the swings that fat lady started chasing me with a stick so I ran. Well, as soon as you want to we can begin your training. She said while her own excited gleam in her eyes. What will you teach me? He asked. The first thing we will be working on is teaching you to read and write. After that I will start teaching you the basics of my taijutsu style, some of the academy ninjutsus, and some basic poisons. Once you learn those I will start teaching you my snake and poison ninjutsus. By the time Anko was done speaking Naruto was literally bouncing with excitement. Normally you would also learn weapons, but you seem to be very good with kunai already so, well I might teach you to use a katana, those will more than likely be your main weapons. Can we start when we get home? Asked the excited blue-eyed boy. Anko gave a quick smile at the word home before saying. As soon as we get home I'll start teaching you to read. The rest of the walk was spent talking about what he was going to learn and of his 2 new friends. Anko couldn't help but wonder if he was planning on making any male friends. Not that she minded any. Once Naruto became a teenager most of his male friends would stare at her chest and then she would be forced to kill them, so this saved her some paperwork. As the 2 made it to the fence surrounding the forest, they saw a woman who looked slightly older than Anko leaving. The woman had shoulder-length, black wavy hair, ruby red lips, and deep crimson eyes. She wore ceremonial bandages that covered her waist, torso, and shoulders, while her metal mesh undershirt had one solid red sleeve that covered her right arm, and her left was left bare. All in all this woman was strikingly beautiful. But not as pretty as my Ni-chan. Thought Naruto as the woman and Anko walked towards each other. Anko? You should hear the rumors going around about you. They're saying you have a kid she started before trailing off once she finally noticed Naruto sitting on her shoulders. Kurenai, this is Mitarashi Naruto, formerly Uzumaki, my new Tauto. Naru-chan, this is my best friend for many years Yuhi Kurenai. Said Anko while smiling at the shocked look on Kurenai's face. Hello. Said Naruto happily while the poor woman could only wave back weakly. We were just about to head inside so I could teach Naru-chan here how to read and write. Do you want to come too? Offered Anko. Kurenai nodded dumbly as she continued to stare at Naruto before following them back to their apartment. Once they were there, Anko sat down with Naruto and began teaching him how to read and write simple words. She was amazed at the speed Naruto seemed to pick everything up and as it began to get dark outside, Naruto fell asleep at the table with his face propped up in his hand. Naru-chan, why don't you go to bed? We will start again early tomorrow morning. Offered Anko. Naruto nodded before standing, hugging Anko tightly and running off to Anko's room where he fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow. Kurenai, who had been silent the entire time, finally asked. Are you going to tell me what is going on? Anko sighed and went into the kitchen where she got a small bottle of sake and 2 small dishes before walking back into the living room and sat down opposite Kurenai around the low table. She then poured them both a drink before saying. Last night I was out walking when I found Naruto being beaten by a not so small gathering of shinobi and villagers. After I killed one of the shinobi and scared off the rest, I took Naruto back here to clean him up and give him a place to sleep. This morning I went to see the Hokage and adopted Naruto and took him on as my apprentice. It's only been 1 day and he has already caught on to my sadistic nature. What do you mean? Asked Kurenai who had understood everything but the last part. She was also a little shocked that she had taken the small blonde as her apprentice. Anko laughed and smiled fondly at the memory before explaining. Earlier today when I went to the Hokage's office I left Naruto at the park near there. Before he could even make it to the swings he found a few academy boys picking on the Hyuga heiress. Naruto kicked one of them in the head before stabbing him with a kunai when he tried to punch him. He then kicked the other 2 in the balls before taking the Hyuga over to the swings to play. He was soon chased out of the park by the cos-en of the boy he stabbed and when I met him, he said that there was a mob chasing him. Imagine my surprise when a single woman showed up with her Musuko to yell at him. When I asked him about it he said. I thought you said blob. At the end of the story Kurenai and Anko were both laughing loudly while Kurenai was a little worried about having another Anko around. Anko might have been her best friend but even she thought that Anko was crazy as hell. Are you sure about this, Anko? Asked Kurenai seriously. Yes. Him and I both need this. Anko replied softly. Kurenai simply nodded her head. She knew how hard it was for Anko and Naruto, not from first-hand experience, but from the fact that she was the only one willing to listen to Anko when she felt like talking, so she knew well everything the villagers did to her or said to her. When it came to Uzumaki Naruto, however, she knew nothing and had struggled to keep it the way. Kurenai was not trying to be unkind or unfeeling, but she knew that it would break her heart to hear some of the things the village did to the poor boy. She knew that even Anko knew very little of his pain because she at least had a family, friends, a chance to grow up a little, whereas Naruto had been a pariah his whole life and had never had a friend or loved one to talk to until now. "Well, I for one am happy for you," Kurenai stated before raising her dish in a toast to the two of them. Once she downed her sake she added jokingly. "But did you have to dress him like you?" Anko shook her head and smiled. "I never had a choice. I took Naruto to Kenshin and Imi's this morning and he stated quite firmly that he wanted to be just like me, minus the skirt of course." "Did he and Tenten get along okay?" Kurenai asked. "The best of friends. Tenten taught Naruto how to throw a kunai and then we found out that the boy must be a prodigy with the things. He can throw a kunai clean through the head of a practice dummy's head from over 20 feet. Anko boasted. "Impressive," agreed Kurenai calmly, while inside she knew that she was going to have to listen to the proud Kasen's speech every time Naruto succeeded at something. The two were interrupted by a soft voice from the hallway. "Ni-chan." Anko looked and found Naruto standing in the hallway with tears in his eyes. "What is it, Naru-chan?" she asked gently. Naruto didn't say anything but ran to her, jumped into her arms and hugged her tightly. "What's wrong?" Anko pressed. "I woke up and thought that you left me," said Naruto quietly as he curled into a tiny ball in her lap and cried. Kurenai watched as Anko whispered reassurances to the small boy while running her hand gently over his back. She was shocked and amazed at the fact that Anko could be a caring Kasen figure and not just some crazy, sadistic psycho woman they all knew she was. But if she were to be honest with herself, even she wanted to comfort the crying child. "I think I'll head home," she said softly to the two. "Good night, Kurenai," said Anko as her friend stood and walked towards the door. "Good night, Anko, Naruto," she said before walking out of the apartment and disappearing in a puff of smoke. "Naru-chan, why did you think I left you? Do you really think that I would adopt you only to leave you again?" asked Anko as she stood and carried Naruto back into her room before laying him down and sliding in beside him. "And no, but one time a villager pretended to be nice to me and when I followed her into an alley, she stared hitting me," cried Naruto as Anko pulled him even closer to her and held him tightly. "Well, I'm never going to leave you, Naru-chan," she said gently. "Why you promise?" asked the demon vessel. "I promise," she vowed. "Now get some sleep, Naru-chan. Tomorrow I want to start you on Taijutsu and continue on your lessons in reading and writing." Naruto nodded sleepily as he rubbed his bloodshot eyes one final time before closing them and finally falling asleep. "I promise things will be different," Anko said softly as she too closed her eyes and fell asleep. Chapter 2. It had been 4 years since Anko and Naruto had found each other, and for 4 years Anko has been teaching Naruto everything she knew. Every ninjutsu, everything about their taijutsu style, and even the one and only genjutsu she knew. When Anko had told the Hokage that she thought that Naruto would excel at her style, she had no idea just how much of an understatement she had made. No, Naruto didn't just excel, he was a prodigy when it came to poisons and her snake jutsus. He had already learned the basics of every jutsu she knew and only had to refine what he knew to the point of mastery. He had even taught Anko a few new ninjutsus as well as created his own, and with the help of Kenshin and Tenten, his kenjutsu was very advanced for his age. Tenten was just happy to have someone to spar with at all hours of the night. This was a sort of unwritten rule for being Mitarashi Anko's apprentice. You had to be ready for training of any kind at any time of day or night. Naruto had also learned why Anko was considered a sadist when she woke him up at 3 in the morning for agility training. This consisted of Anko throwing kunai at Naruto for an entire day. Needless to say that Naruto would have made any of Tenten's practice dummies jealous with the number of kunai that were lodged in his body. The hardest thing for Anko came when Naruto turned 6 years old. This was when she believed he was ready to hear about the Kyuubi. Kyuubi no Yauko, or the nine-tailed demon fox, was the demon responsible for nearly wiping Konohagakure off the map. If it hadn't been for the Yondaime Hokage giving up his life to seal the demon away, every man, woman, and child would have been slaughtered. After flying into a rage, collapsing into tears, and not speaking for a few days, Naruto finally came to terms with his lot in life and vowed that he would become Hokage, regardless of what he held inside him. He even started training harder, stating that he needed to be stronger if he was going to keep Kyuubi in its prison. Anko didn't have the heart to tell him that he didn't need to and that the seal wouldn't be affected by how strong he was, so she let him believe what he wanted and trained him how he asked. So, at 8 years old Mitarashi Naruto was about to face his first day of the Shinobi Academy. This made many people nervous because everyone knew that Naruto had picked up every single sadistic trait that Anko had, and coupled with the fact that he was even more of a prodigy in snake and poison techniques than Anko herself was meant that many parents were telling their children to not pick fights with the blonde boy. Currently the blonde boy was sitting at the kitchen table with his mistress and Ni-chan, eating a large breakfast of ramen, dango, and eggs. "Naru-chan, I wanted to speak with you about something," Anko said calmly as she pushed her plate away from her and turned to Naruto. "Naru-chan, do you really want to be my apprentice still?" At this Naruto began choking on large bite of ramen he had been eating. As he coughed and hacked his throat clear of the noodles he looked at Anko like she had lost her mind and said. "Anko Ni-chan, I love being your apprentice." "Why?" "Naru-chan, I have little else I can teach you. All you really need to do is refine your skills," said a now 20-year-old Anko. She knew that she was very proud of him but couldn't stop a small part of her from wishing that he was a slower learner, if only for the fact that she would still have something to teach him. The fact that he didn't seem to need her anymore the way he once did was weighing heavily on her mind. "Ni-chan, you could teach me advanced anatomy, advanced psychology, torture, and interrogation. There are still lots of things I need to learn from you. Please keep me as your apprentice," he begged. Anko had never really considered that he would want to follow her into her field of study. Truthfully, she hadn't let herself think of it in case he didn't want to or learned what she did and became scared of her. "Are you sure?" she asked seriously while inside she was all but jumping up and down cheering that he wanted to continue. "Yes. Ni-chan, I know what you and Ibiki do and I don't see you any different. If you and he didn't do your job our village would suffer from our lack of knowledge. I also know that you enjoy it because you are crazy, but so am I," he said teasingly with his own sadistic smirk, something that Anko had taught him long ago. "Watch it, brat," she growled playfully back to him before sighing. "I will keep you on as my apprentice and I will start teaching you what is required in my field, but our training will have to be held after your lessons end at the academy." Seeing Naruto grumble at th last part she added. "I know you don't want to go and I know you will be bored out of your skull, but I want you graduating with children your own age. The many good men and women graduate early and die or go crazy because they couldn't handle it. I also know that you are much stronger than they were and would be fine, but I won't take that chance." "Fine," Naruto said with a sigh. "Besides, what do I expect you to do in the academy?" asked Anko with a smirk. Naruto snapped to attention and stated. "You said. You better show those snot-nosed little shits what a real shinobi of the leaf is or so help me, you will be doing agility training from 3 days straight." "Good, and my threat is very real. If you aren't at the top of your class in every subject I will make your life a living hell," she said in a sickeningly sweet tone of voice which caused Naruto to shudder. "I love you too, Ni-chan," mocked Naruto. But the growl Anko dove at Naruto and the two began one of their all-too-common mock fights. Like all the other fights this one ended with Naruto in a headlock while Anko gave him a noogie. "Stop!" screamed Naruto as he tried to pull his head from under her arm. "Say it," she ordered. "Come on," whined Naruto. "Say it or you'll be late," she threatened. "Fine. Anko Ni-chan is the most beautiful woman in the world and I, Mitarashi Naruto, am a snot-nosed little bastard who is beyond lucky to have her as my Ni-chan," Naruto said before making mock-retching noises as Anko let him go and pushed him to the ground. "I always knew you were smart," she said fondly as she started straightening his now messy blonde hair. "Now go or you'll be late." "Aye," he called before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruto arrived just in time to scare most of the class and shock their teacher. Ignoring their looks and glares Naruto walked down and sat beside his longtime friend Hyuga Hinata. "Hello Hinata-chan," he whispered as the instructor resumed taking roll. I was worried when you didn't show," she said with only a slight stutter. After 4 years of being friends with a very loud Naruto and an equally loud Tenten, Hinata had gained back most of her confidence and had lost most of her stutter. "Anko Ni-chan got me in another headlock," he muttered while Hinata could only giggle. Hinata knew all too well what that meant and had always thought it was funny. She was also one of the only ones that knew about Kyuubi and Naruto. Naruto had told her and Tenten after her Kasen had passed away giving birth to her Amato, Hanabi. While Tenten and Hinata were shocked, they didn't really mind. In fact, it helped them both realize that their problems seemed small compared to his. Naruto had tried to tell them that their problems weren't nothing, but they just wouldn't listen to him. "Mitarashi Naruto," said their teacher with a slight wince as he read the name. "Here," supplied Naruto simply yet loudly. "Naruto, since you were late to begin with and then proceeded to talk to Hinata, you missed when I said that you were supposed to stand and tell everyone about yourself," said the teacher with an exasperated sigh. "Oh," said Naruto as he got to his feet. "As you heard, my name is Mitarashi Naruto. I was adopted when I was 4 by my ni-chan and mistress, Mitarashi Anko, who is a Takubetsu jounin. She has been training me since I was 4 years old. I am good with poison and snake jutsus as well as my taijutsu. I enjoy spending time with my ni-chan as well as Hinata-chan, Tenten-chan, and Anko ni-chan's friends. I am about to begin learning torture and interrogation tactics from Anko ni-chan. But that Naruto sat down while most of the class looked confused by what he had said, while the rest, plus the teacher, were shocked that he had already had so much training. Hinata seemed to be the only one who wasn't affected by his introduction because she had known it all for years. Once everyone was finished introducing themselves, the teacher said. My name is Yumi no Ruka and I will be your teacher for the next 4 years. During this time you will learn everything you need to begin a career as a shinobi of Konohagakure. Some of you are entering the class ahead of other, while some are entering with little to no prior knowledge. This will not harm you in any way. I will teach you all you need to know to become genins. Once you graduate it will be your sensei's duty to train you even further, but you must be willing to practice and study outside of what is expected of you if you wish to excel in this line of work. Yes Sakura, he added as a pink-haired girl raised her hand. Naruto was mentally kicking himself for not listening to their names when the girl asked. What will we be learning? I will be teaching you about chakra and chakra control, our village's history, survival training, basic jutsus, and what different ranks mean and how to achieve them. I will also be teaching you the basics of taijutsu and about some of our most famous shinobi. There might be more, but that all depends on how quickly everyone picks up the basics. Naruto, can you tell the class what ninjutsu you used to get here and why I should be punishing you? Asked Iruka as he glared at the blonde boy. That was the body flicker technique as to why you should be punishing me, because it is a move that is supposed to be taught when someone reaches the rank of chunin. Explained Naruto calmly. And why can't I punish you? Asked Iruka. Because a mistress or master may teach their apprentice anything they feel fit, regardless of rank or age. He replied. Correct. For a shinobi to take on an apprentice is a rare thing, and for one to take one on so young is almost unheard of, but Mitarashi Anko has never been one to conform with any set of rules or edict. Said Iruka, who sounded almost spiteful. You might want to be careful, Iruka-sensei. That almost sounded like you were insulting my ni-chan. Said Naruto warningly as his lips curved into a smirk. Iruka seemed to ignore this and began his lesson for the day, which was just covering what they would be learning in more depth than his earlier explanation. You shouldn't say things like that and Naruto-kun. Whispered Hinata. I'm sorry but he seems to hate me already. Naruto replied. Well now you're just giving him a reason to. She said sternly. I'll apologize during lunch. Muttered Naruto. Few people in the world could get Mitarashi Naruto to do anything, and those few were Hinata, Tenten, and Anko. There were a few others that Naruto would occasionally listen to like the Sandaime Hokage, Kurenai, Kenshin, Imi, the Ramen people, and Ibiki, but those were more because he liked them than anything. When the first 3 sounded disappointed or upset it crushed him. They were his first friends and family and they meant everything to him. Gee good. Naruto-kun, you know you can't afford to act like a J-jerk if you want people to see past your furry friend, she said in a much softer tone. I know. He admitted. Hinata reached over and patted his arm to offer some comfort before the two turned their attention back to the man's lesson. Finally at around 1 o'clock Iruka called for a lunch break. Naruto and Hinata sighed in relief as they were given a short break from the torture. Iruka was obviously a very good teacher, but they had learned everything he was talking about from their families and friends years ago. Before Iruka could walk out the door Naruto called out for him to wait. Yes? Iruka asked shortly. I want to apologize for my behavior. I don't like it when people insult my ni-chan, but you are the teacher, so I should have shown you some respect and I'm sorry. Said Naruto. Iruka looked at the mini Anko in shock. He knew he had been an ass to the kid and here he was apologizing for standing up for his family. Maybe I was wrong about him. Anko seems to have done a good job raising him aside from the whole sadistic thing. He thought before saying. I should apologize as well. I let my feelings for something else get in the way. Did you lose your family to Kyuubi? Asked Naruto sadly. Why yes. Said Iruka weakly while he was shocked that the boy already knew about the demon. Anko ni-chan told me about it when I was 6. I'm sorry for your loss, but I am not Kyuubi. Naruto said before walking out of the classroom with Hinata. Maybe I was very wrong. Iruka thought while making a mental note to see Anko about this as he left his classroom before disappearing. Naruto and Hinata were sitting comfortably under in the shade of a large tree while eating their lunches and talking when an arrogant-looking boy walked up with a few girls and boys following him. How did you do that jutsu? Demanded the boy. If you want to know then study and find out for yourself. Naruto answered dismissively before turning back to Hinata, who seemed to by trying very hard not to laugh at the boy's outraged look. Do you know who I am? Shouted the boy angrily. No, and I don't really care either. Naruto replied while the boys snickered and the girls looked highly offended. I am Uchiha Sasuke. The boy said arrogantly, causing May of the girls to swoon. You could call yourself Booger for all I care. I'm still not telling you. Naruto said while Hinata giggled into her hand. Now please leave. That's it. Fight me now. Ordered the black-haired boy named Sasuke. Hinata-chan? Asked Naruto. Gee, go ahead. She said with a sigh. Naruto stood and brushed himself off before looking at the Uchiha. The boy had black hair and eyes, a pale complexion, and what seemed like a permanent scowl on his face. He wore a blue t-shirt with the Uchiha clan symbol on the back and a pair of black shorts and shoes. Fine, I'll fight you. He said calmly before he reached inside his coat to the sides of his legs and pulled out a pair of kunai. You say when. The boy never said when, he just growled and charged Naruto. Said boy sighed, put his kunai away and said in a lazy voice. Fukumakuchi Hari hidden mouth needles before he used his tongue to flip 2 needles from his mouth onto his lips. He then spat them at the charging boy, hitting him in the forehead causing him to stop. How dare you spit on Sasuke-kun? Shouted the pink-haired girl named Sakura and a blonde-haired girl who he later found out was named Ino. If you would pay attention you would notice the 2 needles sticking out of his forehead. Said Naruto calmly and as if on K, Sasuke froze. What did you do to me? He demanded through his clenched teeth. Those needles are hollow and hold a fast-acting poison in them that is released on contact. The poison freezes every joint in the body and lasts for up to 3 hours, depending on a person's height, weight, and blood pressure. Explained Naruto before he turned and walked back to Hinata. Sorry about that. It's okay. Hinata replied calmly as she and Naruto resumed eating their lunches. It was then that Naruto noticed a familiar tiny bottle. Damn it, Anko ni-chan. He muttered. What is it, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked worriedly. Ni-chan put a bottle of sake in my lunch. He answered with a sigh. Hinata couldn't help but giggle at the wry look on Naruto's face. Does that really surprise you? She asked. No, not really. Said Naruto who then shrugged and took a drink from the bottle. Then Naruto-kun. Shouted Hinata once she saw him drink from the bottle. Well, what else am I supposed to drink? He whined. Hinata tried her best to glare at him, but the effect was ruined as her lips betrayed her by curling upward. Fine, but don't drink too much. She said with a heavy sigh. Naruto. Said a voice from behind them. Turning to see who had spoken, Naruto found Iruka standing there with a glaring Sakura and Ino, while Sasuke was still frozen stiff. Yes, Iruka-sensei. Is something wrong? Asked Naruto innocently, which Hinata seemed to think was very funny because the poor girl snorted loudly as she tried to fight her laughter. Everyone stopped and looked at the now blushing girl as she ducked her head and tried wishing them all away. Iruka took pity on the girl and said. Yes, something is wrong. You can't go around poisoning people. Why not? He asked. Iruka seemed so caught off guard by the simple question that it took him a few moments before he replied with. Because it's wrong. They could all tell that Iruka didn't have a real reason, but out of respect for him and his position they went along with it. Ichiha had demanded I fight him, so I did. I can't be held responsible for what happens to him during a fight he started. Reasoned Naruto calmly. Either way I have to send you to the Hokage's office. Said Iruka, who Naruto could tell didn't really want to do this. Now? Naruto asked. Yes. Nodding his head, Naruto turned to Hinata and gave her a helpless shrug, which she returned before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruto reappeared seconds later in the office of the Sandaime Hokage. Aren't you supposed to be at the academy? Asked the elderly Hokage who, to be quite honest, was happy for any reason to postpone doing any more paperwork. Yeah, but Iruka-sensei sent me here after I got in a fight. Well, it wasn't really a fight so much as someone tried to start a fight with me and I poisoned them. Explained Naruto as he sat down in the center chair across from the old man. The Hokage sighed before walking to his door and poking his head out before saying something to his secretary. Once this was done he walked calmly back to his desk where he sat down and leaned back in his chair. A few moments later a smiling Anko appeared in the office. Naruto groaned and said. You called my ni-chan? At this the Sandaime couldn't help but smile as he motioned for Anko to sit. Young Naruto here was involved in an almost fight at the academy. He said calmly. What the hell is an almost fight? Asked Anko, who was looking at the Hokage as if he had finally become too old for his own good. Naruto, please tell her what you told me. Said the Hokage. At lunch Hinata-chan and I were eating peacefully when some arrogant mama's boy came up and demanded that I teach him the body flicker technique. I said no, so he then demanded that I fight him. I had 2 choices. A. Beat him quickly and resume my pleasant lunch with Hinata-chan, or B. Not fight him and listen to his whining for the rest of the lunch hour. Since I am here I can imagine that you know which one I choose. Explained Naruto eloquently. Nice speech. How long were you working on it? Asked Anko with a smirk. As soon as Iruka-sensei told me to come here. He admitted with a guilty smile. So who did you beat and with what? Asked Anko. Uchiha Sasuke with my mouth needles. Said Naruto proudly. Good job. Cried Anko as she leaned over and hugged Naruto tightly before the Hokage cleared his throat. I mean, bad Naru-chan. That's a bad little fox. She chided jokingly. I'm sorry. Said Naruto in a mock apologetic tone. The Hokage just sighed and shook his head. I should have known that you would be congratulated by Anko if you were sent here for fighting. Normal people would have gotten in trouble. He said lightly. Not in our family. Stated Anko with a bright smile. Oh yeah, Ni-chan. Did you mean to give me a bottle of sake with my lunch? Asked Naruto calmly. I didn't notice until you were gone and by then I figured that you might want it. She answered sheepishly. You gave your 8-year-old Tauto sake? Asked the Sandame sternly. Good job. Anko muttered under her breath to a now snickering Naruto. And just where is the sake? The Hokage asked Naruto who was now squirming uncomfortably in his seat. I drank it. He admitted. The Hokage tried to look stern but couldn't keep it up so he sighed heavily and asked. What am I going to do with the two of you? Nothing. Offered the two. Anko, go back to work. Naruto, go back to the academy and tell Iruka that you have been punished, he ordered calmly. The two looked at each other before nodding and disappearing. Each then reappeared in their respective places. In Naruto's case he arrived startling many in the process. Sorry about that. He said sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his neck and offered them a small smile before he walked down to his seat beside Hinata. Everything taken care of? Iruka asked. Yeah, I got punished. Naruto said sadly. Iruka looked at him for a moment before snorting and turning back to his blackboard. Like I believe that. Knowing Anko she more than likely rewarded him. Although it was funny to see Sasuke stuck like that. Thought Iruka as he wrote the next part of his lesson on the board. Hey, are you okay, and Naruto-kun? Asked Hinata softly. Hinata-chan, you know my Ni-chan. What kind of punishment would she give me for fighting? Asked Naruto with a very slight smile. As she would most likely be hap started Hinata before her eyes went wide and she giggled. I knew you were quick. Whispered Naruto. Hey, I have training with Anko Ni-chan after our class, but what do you say we try and find Tenten-chan after that? That sounds nice. Agreed Hinata softly. Naruto smiled at her before sitting back, laying his feet on top of the desk and closing his eyes, while 4 sets of eyes saw this with very different reactions. Hinata saw this and smiled at her blonde friend. Iruka decided to let it slide this once because of what he had done to the arrogant Uchiha, and Ino and Sakura glared at him while each thinking the same thing. How dare he do that to my Sasuke-kun? Naruto himself only noticed Hinata's reaction, but to him that was the only one that mattered right then. A few hours later a soft bell rang, signaling the end of the day. As Iruka tried to shout out assignments as the children ran from the room as fast as they could. Naruto and Hinata walked out calmly. So, should I come by and get you or do you want to come over to my place first? Asked Naruto with a smirk while Hinata glared at him playfully. He knew full well that Hinata never went to his house by herself, simply because it was in the middle of a place called the Forest of Death. That alone seemed to ward off visitors, but she was more than willing to walk through it with either him or Tenten, who didn't mind the forest at all. Of course Naruto would almost always use the body flicker technique to get them there faster, even though Tenten would rant and rave for hours about how much fun they were missing. Hinata's view was that a day with limited encounters of things that could kill her was a good day. See, come pick me you up, Naruto-kun. She stated. As you command. Said Naruto with a mocking bow. Why you should act like this more often. Joked the pearl-eyed girl. Naruto laughed and gave Hinata a playful shove before saying. You wish. Before long the two were in front of the Hyuga compound and with a quick hug, Hinata ran inside with a happy smile on her face. Ignoring the glares the guards gave him, Naruto turned and ran off towards this home. Ever since Naruto had been taught the body flicker, Anko had stated that it was only to be used when he was running late, needed to get somewhere in a hurry, or just needed to get past the forest surrounding their apartment. Not wanting to be late for his new lessons, Naruto ran as fast as he could towards the gates. As he reached them he never even slowed down, and as he was about to run into the gate he suddenly disappeared. What Naruto forgot was the first rule Anko had taught him when he learned the technique. Which was never use it while running, because if you do you reappear running. Normally this isn't a problem if you were reappearing in a clearing or an open street, but Naruto was reappearing right in front of their door, and with a loud thud, Naruto ran face first into the wooden door. As he bounced off the door and clutched his now bleeding nose, Naruto shouted. Damn it all to fucking he before Anko opened the door. She looked down at her Tauto with a sadistic smirk as she leaned against the doorframe and listened to his string of swear words, all of which he learned from Anko early on in life. You did it running didn't you? She asked as Naruto began wiping the blood from the now healed wound. "Shut up," he shouted as he pushed by her only to find Kurenai and Ibiki sitting in their living room laughing. "Perfect," he muttered as he walked into the kitchen to get a wet rag. "So what was that about?" asked a gruff-sounding Marino Ibiki. If his voice sounded gruff, then there was no word to describe his looks. The man was truly a man of his trade, and in this case it wasn't a good thing. Ibiki was Konohagakure's top torture and interrogation specialist, and the man had scars all over his body and drill holes in his head from his own stays with enemy shinobi. This might have been what Anko liked about him, or it could have been that he himself was a sadist. Either way, Naruto found him to be a nice guy and fun to be around. "I was excited about starting my new lessons," he shouted happily. "New lessons?" asked Kurenai. This woman was the wild card, and for the life of him, Naruto couldn't figure out how her and Anko were such good friends. Kurenai was a genjutsu mistress and an overall nice person. She cared about people and would help anyone. She was like a more confident red-eyed Hinata. Whereas Anko was like he was. "I guess that is the answer then," he thought with a mental laugh. He had never thought that Kurenai and Anko matched Hinata and himself so well. "Yeah, Ni-chan is going to start teaching me advanced anatomy, advanced psychology, torture, and interrogation," he said happily as he began all but jumping up and down as excitement swelled inside him. "Following the family trade, are you?" asked Ibiki with a harsh laugh. "Why wouldn't I?" asked Naruto calmly. Kurenai looked at Anko and said, "Leave it to you to adopt a cute blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy and turn him into a sadist by the time he turned 8. She then couldn't help but laugh as Naruto and Anko both gave the exact same look of outrage as they clutched their hearts. "Never mind. You two deserve each other." "Thank you," they chorused with bright smiles. "You're both crazy," said Ibiki with a sad shake of his head. "Who are you to call anyone crazy, Ibiki?" asked Naruto, who despite the highly offended tone was still smiling happily. Kurenai laughed and stated, "He has you there, Scarhead." Ibiki gave a threatening growl which would have worked on anyone other than the three of them. They just let him growl while smiling patronizingly at him. "Neri-chan, I'm going to have to postpone our lessons until tomorrow morning. I forgot that I made plans with these two," Anko said gently. Naruto sighed heavily before nodding and saying, "That's okay, Ni-chan. You go out and have fun with your hoodlum friends, but I expect you home before 10 o'clock, young lady." "Only 10?" whined Anko jokingly. "Fine, 10:30, but I expect you to clean your room tomorrow," Naruto said sternly. "Deal," said Anko happily before both she and Naruto cracked up while Ibiki and Kurenai just looked relieved that they were joking. "Well, I'm going to go get Hinata-chan before heading over to Tenten-chan," shouted Naruto before he grabbed his key and disappearing. "Does he have any male friends?" asked Ibiki once Naruto had left. "None, but after what he did to Uchiha Sasuke, I'd be surprised if he doesn't by the end of the week," she answered with a soft laugh. "What did he do to that brat?" asked Kurenai. "He poisoned him after the Uchiha demanded that he fight him. My little Naru-chan got sent to the Hokage's office on the first day," she said proudly as she wiped an imaginary tear from her eye. "But knowing you, you're actually proud," muttered Ibiki. "I heard that," shouted Anko. "I still haven't heard you deny it," Kurenai pointed out. Anko smirked evilly before saying, "Fine, I'm proud of Naruto." Said boy sneezed loudly before stopping in front of the Hyuga guards. "Hey, could you please tell Hinata-chan that I am here?" he asked. "You should not refer to Hinata-sama in such familiar terms," growled one of the guards while the other left to get Hinata. "Why not? She and Tenten-chan are my best friends," Naruto stated loudly. "Maybe now, but not for long," sneered the guard. Before Naruto could ask him what he meant, a very familiar girl ran out of the front door and right up to him. Then Naruto-kun. I wasn't expecting you so soon," she said happily. "Well, Anko Ni-chan postponed our lessons until tomorrow morning because she forgot that she had made plans with Ibiki and Kurenai," he said with a sigh. "Did why you tell her to be home by 10? Asked Hinata with a giggle as she led Naruto away from the guards and towards their other friend's house. "No, she can stay out until 10:30, but she has to clean her room tomorrow," joked Naruto while Hinata's giggle turned into an outright laugh at the way Anko and Naruto behaved. I wish I had a Ni-san like Anko-senpai," Hinata said softly. Naruto gave her a sad look before wrapping an arm around her shoulder and giving her a comforting squeeze. Hinata had told him that as soon as her Ka-san had passed away, her 2-sen changed drastically. Her 2-sen no longer treated her like he had. He was now cold and condescending, as if he blamed Hinata for his wife's death. Hyuga Hitomi died, bringing Hinata's Amato, Hanabi, now 2 years old, into the world. The only thing he did anymore that would be considered a nice was letting Hinata be friends with Naruto and Tenten, even when it caused him to go against the clan elders. Naruto was one of the few who saw this as him just not caring what she did, but it gave Hinata hope, so who was he to tell her any different? "It'll come around, Hinata-chan," Naruto said gently. "You just work hard and become someone your Ka-san would be proud of." Thank you, Naruto-kun," Hinata replied with a small smile. "It's no problem, Hinata-chan," he said with a bright smile. Hinata simply returned the smile before the two continued their walk towards Tenten's house in silence. For some reason the two of them were the only pairing out of the three that could just walk beside each other in silence and never have to say anything. When Naruto was with Tenten it was always loud and they were always joking around, and when Tenten was with Hinata, she actually acted like a girl and gossiped. This was something Naruto could have lived without, but he learned to keep his mouth shut after he whined and made some comments one time and reserved multiple kunai and shuriken in his legs from Tenten. So Naruto learned early that even the most tomboyish girl was still a girl. Even though Tenten was a year older than them, she still spent most of her time with the two of them. This was the reason why Hinata was bored in their class. While Naruto had his apprenticeship with Anko, Hinata only had a two-san who would shout things at her. So Tenten took it upon herself to see that Hinata learned everything she had been taught, making Hinata a year ahead of everyone in her class, save Naruto. Also, with constant exposure to Tenten and Naruto, Hinata found it very hard to not shout thing all the time, but that just wouldn't be proper. As the two made it to their favorite weapons store, they heard the familiar sounds of Tenten training in her backyard. As the two walked into the store they offered Emi, who was watching the store, a quick hello before walking through the home and out to the backyard. "Stay here," Naruto whispered to Hinata with a smirk. "You're going to scare her, aren't you?" she asked nervously. Things like this never ended well, meaning that Naruto usually ended up looking like a pincushion. Hinata only hoped that Tenten wasn't training with anything too dangerous. Walking out of the house slowly and as silently as he could, he made his way up to a panting Tenten as she leaned forward with her hands on her knees. "Hello, Tenten-chan," Naruto yelled as loud as he could. He then laughed loudly as Tenten jumped about 5 feet in the air as she spun around to find Naruto laughing at her. With a feral growl, Tenten attacked the blonde demon vessel. "You bastard," she shouted as she kicked him as hard as she could in the side, while Ka-san and Hinata snickered at her from the doorway, and when Naruto seemed to ignore the kick, Tenten sat down on his chest and glared at him. Hello," said Naruto as he struggled to stop laughing while looking incredibly nervous. Tenten then gave a smirk that Anko would have been jealous of before saying, "Eat dirt." "Eat what?" started Naruto before Tenten shoved a large clump of dirt into his mouth. With that, Naruto knocked Tenten off of him and began spitting up the dirt while Tenten, Hinata, and Emi all rolled on the ground as they laughed. "I can't believe you made me eat dirt," he yelled. "Why you ate dirt?" shouted Tenten between gasps of breath. "And here I brought Hinata-chan to visit you to tell you all about our first day, and how do you repay me? You make me eat dirt," shouted Naruto before he sat down and pouted. "Well, you shouldn't have scared her, and Naruto-kun," Hinata replied with only a slight giggle as she walked over to the two and sat beside Naruto. Tenten of course spent the next few minutes pointing and laughing at Naruto before she regained control over herself and sat up, but with a wide smile that split her face in two. "So how was your first day?" she asked with one last giggle. "It was boring you until Naruto-kun got sent to the Hokage's office for fighting. That was pretty funny," Hinata answered with a fond smile. "You got into a fight on the first day?" shouted Emi from the doorway. How proud was Anko? "Very. You would have thought that I single-handedly took over the world by the way she was smiling," Naruto said happily. "So what did you do?" asked Tenten excitedly. From the constant exposure to Anko and Naruto, Tenten had learned to love a good fight. "Well, Hinata-chan and I were being perfect angels while eating our lunch." Emi and Tenten snorted loudly at this part. When all of a sudden that arrogant bastard Uchiha Sasuke walked up and demanded that I teach him the body flicker. I said no, mocked him a little, so he demanded that I fight him. As he charged me I noticed that his taijutsu was academy standard at best, so I poisoned him quickly and went back to my lunch with Hinata-chan," explained Naruto. Then two of Uchiha-san's fangirls told on him and he got sent to the Hokage's office," added Hinata while her eyes narrowed a bit at this but quickly softened to their usual doe-eyed appearance. "You poisoned him?" shouted Tenten, who sounded upset and awed by the fact. "Yes," said Naruto nervously. He really didn't want to eat any more dirt. "Oh man. I wish I could have seen that," she whined while Hinata and Emi sweat dropped while Naruto sighed in relief. "There wasn't much to see. I used my hidden needles to freeze him for a few hours. Although it was funny to hear all of his fangirls yell at me for spitting on their Sasuke-kun," Naruto said while copying their shrill voice perfectly. "They never even noticed your needles or the fact that you said hidden mouth needles?" asked Tenten in disbelief. She knew that Naruto was better than her, and after they both started training with Hinata, that even she was almost as good as she was, but even at the age of 6, she had noticed Naruto's needles. Hinata started noticing them last year because that was when she was first hit by them and they were always the ones with the weakest poison he had. Nothing good would come from paralyzing your sparring partner for hours on end. Honey, they are only 8 years old and a lot of them haven't had any form of training yet, Emi said to her daughter. Whatever. Muttered Tenten. Tenten was the kind of person who hated being judged by the fact she was female. She firmly believed that the fact that she was a girl had nothing to do with what kind of shinobi she was, and one of the things that would set her off was snobby little fangirls who wanted to do their hair more than train. They gave every kunoichi a bad name and only furthered the stereotype that women had no business being shinobi. This was one of the reasons Tenten had no female friends her own age and why she hung out with Naruto and Hinata. Naruto, after being raised by Anko, believed that women made very good shinobi. If he had believed any different then Anko and Kurenai would have probably killed him. Hinata, being female, believed like Tenten but also thought ahead a little more. While Tenten simply hated them for furthering a stereotype, Hinata thought ahead to possible missions and knew that if they were a weak link then they would most likely die and possibly take their teammates with them. So as a rule, when they trained with each other they held nothing back. Tenten-chan, you should wait a little while to see what kind of kunoichi they are going to be before you start hating them. You never know, they may turn out to be very good shinobi. Offered Naruto weakly. He said this more to appease Tenten than anything. Personally he didn't see them changing, but gave them the benefit of the doubt. You don't even believe that? Shouted Tenten as she glared at Naruto. I isn't judging someone you don't know what you hate, Tenten-chan. Asked Hinata softly. Tenten sulked a little and muttered. Yes. Then you should give them a chance. Besides, it was only the first day. Emi said as she stood, brushed herself off, and walked back into the house to watch the store she had left unattended. So what are you two up to? Asked Tenten. Out on a date. What? Shouted Naruto. We're only 8 years old. Besides, Naruto-kun is like an ISAN older brother to me. Stated Hinata while Tenten turned her head to hide the relived look on her face from Naruto, but Hinata saw it and smiled slightly. In Konoha it was common for younger children to find someone at a young age, even if nothing happened until they were teenagers. It was the price people paid for living in a shinobi village. Most people die at a very young age, so children tend to grow up much faster than they normally would, mentally that is. Yeah, Hinata-chan is the annoying IMOUTO younger sister I never had. Shouted Naruto. Hinata clearly didn't find this funny. Why you are only 2 months older than I am. 2 months is still 2 months. He said mockingly. Do you want to eat dirt again? She threatened. This shut Naruto up so fast that the two girls couldn't help but laugh at the blonde boy. That's not fair. Naruto said with pout. Well, how about we train for a little bit? That should take your mind off of the big bad dirt. Joked Tenten. Naruto chose to ignore the dirt comment but stood up and got ready to train nonetheless. So what are we going to do today? He asked. Well, since Hinata-chan and I haven't seen your taijutsu stance because you're a stingy bastard. How about taijutsu spars? Asked Tenten. Naruto debated this in his mind for a few moments before he sighed and said. Fine. At least now I can get you back for that dirt. Then you two can go first. Hinata said softly as she moved to the side of the yard so that the two had more room to move around. Since Tenten only ever used weapons she only ever learned the basic academy taijutsu style, but from working with Anko, she was very good at it. Naruto on the other hand used a style that only 3 people in the world knew, himself included. He moved into his stance which looked very off-balance to Tenten and Hinata. All his weight was on his right foot as he placed his left foot lightly on the ground in front of him. His left arm was held loosely out in front of him and his right was bent along his waist. Both hands were balled into fists except for his index and middle fingers which were held straight out. Normally he would have chakra encasing them, but in a friendly spar there was no need. Without chakra he could only poke the girls really hard, but if he had channeled chakra, then his fingers would have cut through their skin and organs like a hot knife through butter. What is that? Asked Tenten as she looked at his off-balance stance in confusion. This is Byaku no Zatsu and Hibi or dance of the twin snakes. Normally I would have my fingers surrounded with chakra, but that would mean that if I hit you, then it could kill you and you're much too cute to kill. Explained Naruto with a bright smile. Whatever. Said Tenten, but she couldn't stop her cheeks from turning pink. Hinata watched the two stare at each other while trying to force the other to make the next move. She knew that Naruto never made the first move because he didn't mind waiting and also that it messed with his opponent when he stood there smiling. He was truly a sadist. He loved messing with people's minds to the point where they snapped and made a stupid move. Then it would be his turn. Tenten also knew all about Naruto's tendencies and decided that if she was going to have to attack, then it should be on her terms and not because she lost it. She had lost too many fights to the blonde boy that way. So with impressive speed she ran towards Naruto while completely composed. She never really thought about the reason that his stance was so off balance, and that cost her. As she charged him, Naruto's left foot shot into the air with amazing speed. As his foot connected with Tenten's jaw, he shifted onto his left foot with his right in front. Tenten was knocked so hard by the kick that she flew a few feet back before landing on the ground with a hard thud. She then laid there staring at the sky as she tried to work out what the hell had just happened. She then gave a light laugh as she lifted herself off of the ground and wiped the blood from her chin. "Well, that explains the stance," she said with a smirk. One of the things Naruto loved about sparring with Tenten and Hinata was the fact that when they got hit they learned from it and came right back at you. They were a lot like Anko in that respect. On the very few times Naruto had managed to even hit Anko, she would compliment him and come at him harder than ever. This made for an excellent workout. "I guess it does," agreed Naruto with the same sadistic smirk that Anko wore most of the time. Tenten sighed and moved back into her stance and added, "It was good but it won't work again." "We'll see," Naruto said simply before Tenten charged him again. This time when Naruto kicked she rolled to the side, only to have him bring his foot down on top of her. Luckily she was able to block the blow with her forearms as she held them crossed above her head. Smirking slightly, Tenten kicked at Naruto's knee, knocking him off balance for a moment. What Tenten didn't know was that his style worked best when he was off balance. He collapsed on purpose so that he could get his right leg back. He then lunged forward and jabbed Tenten in the stomach before his momentum carried him past her. As he rolled away, Tenten held her stomach and gave a dry heave. I think Tenten-chan is done," Hinata said softly as she and Naruto moved to check on Tenten. "I am fine," she said shakily as she waved them off. "But damn, that hurt." "I'm sorry, Tenten-chan. That is one of the reasons I never used it on you too. It is made to kill the opponent as quickly as possible, and if Anko and I don't control it enough we could kill each other or sparring partners. You are amazing with the academy style, but there are many counters to it and everyone knows it. Hinata's gentle fist could match mine pretty well, but still it would depend on the user's skill. Tenten-chan, you really need to find a style of taijutsu for when your weapons fail you," said Naruto almost pleadingly. Normally Tenten would wave it off and ignore it, but now, hearing Naruto's tone, she looked oddly thoughtful. "I'll talk to my Ka-san." "Thank you," answered Naruto before turning to Hinata. "So Hyuga, do you think you can match my awesome power?" he shouted before laughing evilly. Hinata quickly shut him up by closing a chakra point in his arm, causing him to wince. "That's not fair," he whined as he reopened the point. Depending on who you ask, Naruto made an excellent sparring partner for the shy Hyuga. If you asked Hinata she would say it was so because he opened the points almost as quickly as she closed them, so she didn't have to worry about hurting him. Naruto would disagree because it only meant that Hinata could close them more often when on a normal person she would stop once enough were closed. Shut up and fight, why you mean guy," Hinata said with mock anger. Naruto and Tenten both stopped and stared at the girl. Hinata barely had it in her to insult someone who deserved it, and mean guy was the best they had gotten out of her when it came to the two of them. "Mean guy? That's it?" asked Tenten in disbelief. Hinata blushed a deep shade of red and started stuttering horribly before she took a deep breath and said, Sorry. You know I can't insult you too. I have enough trouble insulting others. Why do I have to do that anyway? Because a shinobi isn't supposed to be as kind as you are. Hinata-chan, we love you like our long-lost stuttering Amato, but you have to learn that it's okay to hurt those that deserve it," answered Naruto gently. "I'll try," she replied softly. "Good, but for now we fight," Naruto said strongly as Tenten moved back and the two fights moved into their respective stances. Since Hinata's gentle fist was a close quarters taijutsu style, the fight was nothing but the two palming and poking each other once she dodged his first kick. She made certain that she stayed up close to him and didn't give him a chance to jump back and kick. Every time he tried that she would jump with him, landing even closer than before. Both girls knew Naruto was holding back against them, and normally they would be mad, but they knew that it wasn't because they were girls. It was because he was many times stronger than them with his style and in taijutsu altogether. For the most part he was like a training log that would hit you back if you gave him an opening. In overall skill, Naruto beat them in every field but Kinjutsu, which Tenten dominated. He was far above them in ninjutsu, Jinjutsu, which wasn't a lot because his one beat their none, and Taijutsu, but he was always there to help you practice, and with the kind of training they knew Anko put him through it didn't surprise them at all. Finally, as Hinata thrust her palm towards Naruto, he dodged with a quick burst of speed and ended up at her side. He then gave her a quick jab in the side of the neck, which caused her to fall forward, only to have Naruto catch her. "Good job, Hinata-chan," Naruto said happily as he walked over and set Hinata down on the ground where Tenten was sitting before he sat down himself. "You didn't tell me that I had done a good job," said Tenten with a pout. "Yeah, well, Hinata-chan didn't make you eat dirt, now did she?" Naruto inquired while Tenten and Hinata began laughing again as the scene played in their minds once more. Shut up. The three spent many more hours talking about everything they could think of, and finally it became very late and Hinata needed to get home. Well, her Tusan didn't seem to care about her anymore and gave all of his attention to Hinata's Amato, Hanabi. Hinata still had a self-imposed curfew. Of course this led to many jokes about grounding herself if she were late to try and make Hinata smile or laugh. "I'll walk you home, Hinata-chan," stated Naruto as they walked out of Tenten's house after a quick goodbye to her parents. "Hey, alright," agreed Hinata. As the two walked slowly towards the Hyuga compound, as Naruto called the Hyuga sector of Konohagakure because it was more like a prison for Hinata than a home, Naruto and Hinata spoke quickly before lapsing into one of their silences. Finally Naruto broke it by saying, "Hinata-chan, if you ever want to stay with Anko ni-chan and I'm sure it would be fine with her." "I am fine, Naruto-kun. Thank you for worrying about me, but I have to be strong. Why, you can't run away from your problems," she said softly and with a sad smile. "Do you think that I ran away from my problems?" Naruto asked quietly. "No. Why, your problem seems to be Konohagakure as a whole. The only way you could run away from your problems would be to leave the village and never look back. Just because you and Anko-senpai live together and she adopted you has nothing to do with running away," reasoned Hinata. Naruto gave her a smile before he chuckled and said, "You know Anko ni-chan hates it when you call her senpai. She says it makes her feel old. Although I don't get how a 20-year-old feels old just because someone calls them senpai. I know she does, but it's what she is. Plus it's fun to tease her a little," Hinata admitted while Naruto snorted loudly at this. "Maybe for you, but if I tease her she takes it out on me during training, which is really torture in disguise," he said. "I sure it's not that bad. She once made me dodge kunai for 6 hours with a blindfold on and earplugs in because I said she looked tired." "Okay, so maybe it is." "You're damn right it is," said Naruto as they reached the gates to Hinata house. "Well, here we are." "Thank you and Naruto-kun," said Hinata softly as she hugged him tightly before running into her house. "Good night you two," Naruto called to the guards as he walked away. "Shut up, demon," sneered one of the guards while the one that never said anything just sighed. He neither liked nor hated Naruto, and that suited Naruto just fine. The other guard was like the rest of the village and hated Naruto with every fiber of his being. "I love you too, guard team," Naruto yelled over his shoulder as he ran away from the house. As he entered the forest around his home, he decided that running through it would be nice tonight as it was a full moon and everything bathed in its glow. As he sped through the forest, most of the smaller animals didn't pay any attention to him because they were used to seeing him, and the larger ones watched him with ever vigilant eyes, just hoping that he would hurt himself or something would happen so that he would become open to an attack. They knew that Naruto could kill them, so being the smart predators they were, they simply stayed back and watched. Naruto entered the tower and raced up the stairs as fast as he could while pulling out his key in case Anko wasn't home or was already asleep. As he tried the door he found that it was unlocked, so he walked into the apartment and stopped and stared with his mouth gaping at the scene before him. There on the couch in front of him was his Ni-chan and Kurenai kissing each other with a heated passion that shocked Naruto. Neither had even registered the fact that he was in the room. Ni-chan?" he asked. "Naru-chan," shouted Anko as she jumped off of Kurenai as if she had been burned. Both of the women blushed heavily while Naruto's mind struggled to keep up. "Why, you were making out," he said, officially stating the obvious. "Then Naru-chan, it wasn't what it looked like," offered Anko lamely. "Really, because it looked like you were making out," said Naruto dryly. "Look, it isn't any of my business and as long as you're both happy then I don't care, but you should have at least went to your room, Ni-chan." "You really don't mind?" asked Kurenai because Anko seemed too embarrassed to talk at the moment. "Not at all. Hell, when I'm older I might even appreciate it more. You two are every pervert's dream come true," he said with a light laugh while the two blushed even more. "So how long has this been going on and does Ibiki know?" "Yes, Ibiki knows. He happened to be the one each of us went to for advice, so he told us what the other had said and it went from there. As for how long, about a year," answered Kurenai. "Well, I'm a little put out that you didn't tell me sooner and that I only found out because I caught you," Naruto said a little sadly. "Naru-chan, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure how you would take it and I couldn't stand the idea of you being disgusted or hating me," Anko explained softly. "It's okay, but you should know by now that I could never hate you. You found me and cared for me, even adopted me, plus you don't make me eat dirt," said Naruto darkly as he growled the last part. He then realized what he had said and groaned. "I'm going to my room." "Not so fast. Why do you mean by making you eat dirt?" asked Anko. Naruto's shoulders slumped as he walked over to the couch and sat down. "Can't I just go to bed?" he whined. "No. This story sounds too good to let you go without telling us. Anko replied with her usual smirk. Fine. When Hinata-chan and I went over to Tenten-chan's house I thought it would be a good idea to sneak up on her and scare her. Well, it turns out that Tenten-chan didn't share my view and tackled me and shoved a hunk of dirt into my mouth. He said quickly. It took a few seconds before they registered what he had told them, but once it did they both started laughing and clutching their sides. "Yes, she made you eat dirt," shouted Anko as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Yes, I know she did," Naruto replied wryly. He let them laugh for a few more minutes before he decided that they had had enough enjoyment from his embarrassing moment, so he asked. "I can't help but wonder how much pictures of you two making out would sell for." At this the two women stopped laughing and looked at him fearfully. "Relax, I wouldn't do that to you," Naruto assured them. He then looked at Kurenai and asked. "You aren't just using my Ni-chan, are you? You really do care about her, right?" "No, I'm not just using her. Yes, I really do care about her and thank you for understanding," she answered. "You don't have to thank me. I'd go along with almost anything as long as it makes Ni-chan happy," he said calmly as he stood and started out of the room. "Good night you two." "Good night, Naru-chan," Anko said absently. She was still trying to work through everything that had happened. She didn't want Naruto to find out like this, but now that he had she felt relieved. The guilt had been piling up ever since the relationship had started and now that it was gone she felt amazing. "Kurenai-chan." "Yes, Anko-chan. Would you like to stay the night?" she asked softly. Kurenai could have sworn that Anko sounded shy, but Mitarashi Anko never sounds shy. She must have been hearing things. "Yes, I would." But that the two walked back to Anko's room and crawled into bed and after a few more minutes of kissing, they both fell asleep while a blonde boy in the next room laid in front of a large fan and talked to something no boy would admit to having. "The day has been very strange," he said quietly to his long since washed and repaired teddy bear before he rolled onto his side and closed his eyes and fell asleep. Chapter 3. Naru-chan, wake up. Naruto rolled over in his bed and sighed. He was very tired still and didn't want to wake up, but he knew his Ni-chan, and if he didn't there would be dire consequences. Mitarashi Naruto sat up in his bed and stretched. At the age of 12 Naruto had grown to a height of 5 foot 4 inches and a weight of about 150 pounds. He had spent the last 4 years training hard with Anko and Ibiki so that he was fully capable when it came to torture and interrogation, and most of the kids in his class stayed away from him because of that. Not that he minded, no, Naruto was content with having Hinata and Tenten as his friends and couldn't ask for more. Over the past 4 years Naruto had worked side by side with Anko and Ibiki on 2 or 3 interrogations and found that he was quite good at them. His training with Anko would now be considered more of a spar than a teaching session because Anko had finished her teachings when she allowed him to sign the summoning contract for snakes. He was now just under her in his mastery of his skills, but he knew he would most likely never catch her because as they sparred they both got better, so there was always that gap between them that showed that she was the mistress and he was the student. Thinking back to his friends Naruto couldn't help but smile. Hinata had finally lost her stutter and was as confident in her skills as either Naruto or Tenten. She had allowed her hair to grow out and it now reached just past her shoulders. Naruto also noticed that as she grew she became even more beautiful and now bared a striking resemblance to her Ka-san. Her style of clothing had stayed the same with her bulky jacket and a pair of dark indigo pants. When Tenten asked why she hid behind her clothing, she said it was because she didn't want people gawking at her. Of course this was said with a blush. No matter how confident Hinata got she was still very kind and shy, but now if someone made her mad enough, she would beat them to a pulp. Luckily it took a lot to anger the kind girl. Tenten had also grown more and more beautiful as the years passed and Naruto couldn't help but notice how puberty was affecting her. She, like the other two, kept her same style of clothing and also the same hairstyle. She had taken Naruto's words to heart and began learning her family's taijutsu style. Naruto couldn't help but laugh when he remembered the look on his friend's face when her Ka-san told her that her side of the family had their own style. Ironically it was based on making one's body into a weapon by molding their chakra through their limbs. So as long as Tenten had chakra in her arms and legs, she had a weapon. The fact that she had graduated the year before and was now under the tutelage of a taijutsu freak named Might Guy only helped refine her style even more. Tenten had introduced them to her team one time and Naruto and Hinata knew that they would never forget that day. Her two other teammates were Rock Lee, a very nice boy with an ugly bowl-shaped haircut and huge fuzzy eyebrows, and Hai Uganiji, Hinata's Itoko cousin. This guy was an asshole in every sense of the word and took pleasure in degrading others. Tenten thought he was a jerk and had a fun time making fun of him. Lee, like Guy, wore a hideous green, nearly skin-tight training suit that made even Anko want to run away screaming. Most people though, were able to look past this because they were both very nice people, if a little strange. The weirdest thing about it was that they were even louder than Naruto when they worked themselves up, and by a very large margin. The last 4 years at the academy were as exciting as watching two snails play chicken for Hinata and Naruto. Naruto was at the top of his class with Hinata in a very close second. This fact seemed to piss off Sasuke and his two harpies Ino and Sakura to no end. Sasuke had lost his entire family when the group turned 9. His own Nai-san had slaughtered everyone, only leaving Sasuke alive, but so messed up that even Anko was slightly worried about him. This sympathy was short-lived as Naruto had attempted to make friends with the boy after he had returned to the academy, but the boy sneered and spat at his offer. He clearly didn't want any friends or pity. Naruto also couldn't believe how the village reacted, it was like their precious Uchiha could do no wrong. This was the reason both Anko and Naruto stopped caring. They had both suffered worse than he had, and they were still treated as pariahs. Sasuke's only goal in life was to kill his Nai-san and resurrect his lost clan, while Ino's and Sakura's dreams seemed to be that they would be one to help with that. "Are you up yet?" asked Anko as she opened his door to find him sitting on his bed in nothing but his boxers. "Nice, Naru-chan. Maybe I should call Tenten over and see if she would help get you up." Naruto was awake enough to work through what she had said, so with a groan and a deep blush he said. "Shut up, Ni-chan. How many times do I have to tell you that Tenten-chan and I are just friends and stop calling me Naru-chan? You keep telling yourself that but everyone around you knows the truth," she stated before leaving the room. It was true. Naruto was head over heels for his brown-haired best friend and he and everyone else, aside from Tenten herself, seemed to know it. Oddly enough the same was true for Tenten. She and everyone else knew that she liked Naruto, but him and most of their adult friends just enjoyed watching the two fumble around each other. With one last sigh, Naruto got out of bed and walked across the hall to the bathroom where he took a quick shower and got dressed. He then walked into the kitchen to find Kurenai and Anko sitting at the kitchen table eating their breakfast. After finding out that Naruto was fine with the two of them being together, it didn't take too long before Kurenai moved in with them. It was soon after that they decided to make their relationship public, much to the disappointment and utter joy of the village's men. The perverts were being perverts, so any attractive lesbian couple was a joy to have around, while the semi-perverts and non-perverts were disappointed that two of the most attractive women in the village were, in fact, attracted to each other. Most of the women and older people of the village were disgusted with them, but a few were just happy that they seemed happy. Of course nothing but glares were given to them because Anko and Kurenai were not to be taken lightly, and Naruto was very well known for killing any person he heard speaking bad about the two, but it took quite a bit to reach that point with him. Luckily for the villagers and shinobi of Konohagakure, word of Naruto's reaction to anyone speaking ill of his Ni-chan and her lover spread like wildfire, so people quickly learned to hold their tongue around him. Mostly the couple just ignored everyone and went about their business. "So, are you excited about the exam?" asked Kurenai as Naruto dropped down into a seat across from them. "Oh yeah, the Genin exam is today." Smiling, Naruto answered. "Very, I know we will get nothing but crap missions like Tenten-chan did, but anything is better than the academy. Iruka-sensei is great and all but most of the time I'm pleading with Hinata-chan to kill me." Speaking of Hinata, have you noticed the shy little look she sends to a certain stoic insect-loving boy? Asked Anko. Who hasn't? Replied Naruto. Even I can see that those two like each other and are just too dense to realize it themselves or too embarrassed in Hinata-chan's case. Anko and Kurenai snorted loudly at this. Naruto saying that someone else was dense when it came to relationships was pretty funny to them. Shut up. I know that I like Tenten-chan, but she doesn't like me. He said sadly. Naruto, you are a fool. Said Kurenai with a fond smile. And we don't know yet if Shino returns her feelings. That boy is too damn hard to read. Oh, and if you don't pass then you will still be my apprentice for the next year and I really don't think you want that. Anko threatened with her usual smirk and gleam in her eyes. Whatever she had planned would promise pain if nothing else. Oh, I'll pass alright. You two are looking at this year's Rookie of the Year, not that I give a damn about that stupid title. Niji was last year's and he is the biggest prick I've ever met. I told Tenten-chan and Hinata-chan that I think he holds the world record for largest stick to ever fit up someone's ass, but until I can prove it, they won't believe me, and I really don't want to be in the position where I could prove it. Said Naruto while Anko and Kurenai laughed as he shuddered at the last part. They both knew of Niji because Guy had been one of the first ones to congratulate them on being open with their relationship. He spent hours shouting about their flames of youth and about the powers of youthfulness. He had brought his team with him and it seemed that Niji was one of the few young men in the village who looked down on their relationship. Tenten and Lee, on the other hand, were happy for them. Tenten had known about it much longer than the rest of the village because she was Naruto's friend. Lee was a mini guy, so he shouted the same stuff Guy did before the two started crying and hugging. That was when Anko and Kurenai decided to leave them. Anko might be a crazy sadist, but Guy and Lee were just plain crazy, but had a much nicer disposition than she did. I'm sure you'll do great. What team are you hoping to be on? Kurenai inquired. Well, I am hoping to have you as a sensei since you became a Jounin sensei this year. For teammates I want Shino and Hinata-chan. We would make a very good scouting team. He said with a little excitement. Kurenai was certainly happy that he wanted to be on her team and a little surprised that he had figured out that she would be given a scouting team, but she was curious as to his reasoning as to why he should be on the team. Why should a torture and interrogation specialist be on a scouting team? She asked while Anko looked curious as well. Naruto stopped eating and explained. The way I see it is that the team would have been Kiba, Hinata, and Shino. I personally think that this is a team that is too specified. If something were to happen, the team would be in danger. Also, having a torture and interrogation specialist is a bonus for a scouting team because we could pick off an enemy shinobi and I could get info from them without our having to go too far into enemy territory. I have also been working with Anko Ni-chan for years and I am as good a tracker as anyone in my class. I also have my snake summons that wouldn't look out of place anywhere in the elemental countries. I know that it is a long shot for me to get the team I want, but I can hope. Anko and Kurenai were both speechless by his reasoning and wondered why scouting team weren't set up like this to begin with. One reason they both knew was because Naruto would be one of only 3 interrogation specialists in Konohagakure. Very few people wanted the job and fewer still were any good at it. Anko made a mental note to speak to the Hokage about this. Kurenai decided to do the same because she, like many other scouting specialists, had lost her team on a mission where they met heavy resistance and didn't have the raw power needed to fight their way out, and what Naruto said offered them a way to rectify this problem to a certain extent. Well, I had better get going before Hinata-chan decides to kill me because I made her suffer without me. Stated Naruto as he stood and gave both of the women a quick hug before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Anko had finally taught him the Konohagakure version of the body flicker and he was so happy she had. He had spent hours thanking her because apparently leaves were a lot better than a cloud of smoke. Like every time before, Naruto appeared in the middle of the class. By now, no one even looked up at him and Hinata just smiled brightly at him from her usual seat. Good morning, Hinata-chan. He called as he walked up to her and sat down beside her. Good morning, Naruto-kun, how are you? She asked softly. I'm great. Kurenai and Anko Ni-chan finally managed to wake me up and Anko Ni-chan threatened me if I failed. He answered. You? The usual. My 2 cents sneered at me, Miyamoto glared at me, and Niji told me I'm useless and will only be a burden to my team if I were to pass. She answered. Her family hadn't changed one bit over the last few years and now Hanabi started in on her as well. It seemed that no matter how strong she got it was never good enough for any of them except a few branch house members. The Hyuga clan was broken into the main house, which was the clan head and the possible heirs or heiress, and the branch house which was everyone else. The 2 houses hated each other and Hinata seemed to be the only one that was on good terms with anyone in the branch house. Naruto and Tenten were horrified when Hinata had told them about the cage bird seal that was placed on every branch member. The seal was used to seal the person's blood limit should an enemy get a hold of their body. It could also be used by the main house to punish them. Once the curse was activated it caused the person blinding pain in their heads and could kill them if it was left active for too long. Why don't you just beat Uramoto and show them that you aren't worthless? Asked Naruto for what seemed like the millionth time. I won't fight Miyamoto just so my 2 sen will be happy. If I beat her he might start treating her the way he does me. She reasoned. But now she is growing up to be a cruel and arrogant person. Which is really better? Naruto asked. Naruto-kun, please. She said softly. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's just a hard choice to make. I know all about hard times and choices, Hinata-chan. You know that. He said calmly. I know you do. Hinata admitted. So, did you dream about Tenten-chan last night? She asked with a slight smirk. How did you know? Shut up. He shouted as his face turned red. Did you have one about Shino-kun? He said quietly and in a mocking tone. Shut up. Hinata stuttered as her own face turned red. Truce. He offered. Deal. Hinata said quickly. After this the 2 fell into a silence before Naruto had to say something. I can't believe you like Shino. Hinata growled and smacked him upside the head. Shut up or I tell Tenten-chan that you said she was fat. Naruto paled and his eyes went wide. Hey now, there's no need for that. Oh, and have I told you how beautiful you look today? He said nervously. That's what I thought. Hinata said smug tone. Of course I could just tell Shino that you were smashing bugs in the forest yesterday while cackling madly. Naruto stated offhandedly. Please don't. Begged Hinata. Shino was from the Aburam clan and they were basically living hosts for their insects. When they are born they offer their bodies as a hive and allow them to feed off their chakra. In return they gain control over the bugs, thus making them the only bug-using clan in Konohagakure. Shino was something of a clan prodigy and hated it when people smashed bugs for no reason, and if Naruto were to tell him that Hinata did that then he would most likely never speak to her again. Relax. I wouldn't do that to you. Now, who do you want on your team? He asked. I would like to have you and she said shyly. I know. That is actually that team I'm hoping for. He said. Really? Yes really. You know why I want you on my team, and Shino is strong and will make a very good shinobi. He reasoned before a slight smirk began forming over his calm expression. He is also the least likely to annoy me. I'd hate to have to poison my teammate every single time they open their mouth and said something stupid. Anything else they planned on saying was cut off as Iruka walked into the room and the would-be shinobi fell into a nervous silence. Today will be the genin exams. If you pass you will leave the academy and begin your work as a shinobi of Konohagakure. If you fail well just don't fail. This test will be divided into 2 parts. The first will be a written test to show your knowledge of various shinobi terms and situations. The second will be for you to show us, Mizuki-sensei and I, the academy jutsus that you learned. They of course are Bunshin, Kawarimi, Henge. If you were to pass the written test and do 2 out of the 3 jutsus then you will still pass, but failing any 2 will result in you failing. Now, I will hand out the written test. After you are done you may take your lunch break and when everyone is done and has had enough time to eat, I will call you one at a time into the room to show us your jutsus. You may want to practice a little during lunch and Naruto, please don't poison the class again. Iruka said while the class snickered at the last part. It had become all too common for the class to come back from lunch sick or unable to use certain parts of their bodies. Fine. Ruin all my fun. Said Naruto with a pout while Iruka slammed his paper down in front of him and smiled. Good luck all of you and begin. Iruka called out as he walked back to his desk. Naruto flipped his test over and began reading the questions. Oh I am going to be so happy when I get out of here. He thought as he began filling in the answers to the beyond simple test. Yes it could have been hard if he hadn't had Anko drilling everything into his head at a young age, but the fact of the matter was that he did. It wasn't even 5 minutes when Naruto began reading back through his completed test to make sure he hadn't missed one. Once he was done proofreading his test he stood and walked down to Iruka. Here you go. He said as he laid the paper in front of him. Iruka looked startled for a moment before he saw that it was Naruto. I should have known it was you. How was it? Iruka-sensei, I've told you before. You are a great teacher. I'm not trying to make you look bad by passing everything. I'm just used to Anko Ni-chan's way of teaching. The people who didn't have my kind of training this test will be hard as it should be, but you have taught us everything we needed to know. Naruto said reassuringly. Iruka sighed and nodded. He always felt nervous when his students took this test because if he didn't teach them well then they could be killed. This was one of the major drawbacks of being a teacher at this kind of academy. I'll be outside poisoning everyone's food. Joked Naruto as he walked out of the class while grabbing his and Hinata's lunches and walking over to the tree they always sat under. He didn't have to wait long before Hinata came outside with Sakura, Ino, and Sasuke trailing behind her. The latter walked off somewhere while the other 2 followed him. It was a little sad to note that Tenten had been right about those 2. If anything the beginnings of puberty had made them even worse when it came to their Sasuke-kun. I'm glad that's over. Said Hinata as she sat down and took her lunch from Naruto. You didn't have trouble did you? Asked Naruto. None at all but I was still very nervous. I kept thinking about failing. She admitted as they began to eat. You shouldn't worry so much. You're a great shinobi and once we pass this test you can prove it to everyone else. He stated calmly. Well if you would worry more then maybe I wouldn't have to. She shouted. True, but that's not likely to happen. Admitted Naruto with a fox-like grin. Do you ever find our friendship odd? What do you mean? Hinata asked. Naruto laid back and rested his head on a tree root before answering. Well I mean you, Tenten-chan, and I. You are the shy, quiet heiress of this village's most respected clan. I am a demon vessel and hated by almost all of this village, and my Ni-chan is just as bad as I am. Tenten-chan is a weapons expert that would rather pump you full of shuriken and kunai than listen to you whine. We have to be the weirdest group of friends in the village and yet we have never fought in the 8 years we've known each other. Normally I would say that as a group we even each other out, but that doesn't work in our case because we get along fine even if it is just 2 of us. I used to wonder about that. She said calmly. Did you ever find an answer? Naruto asked. Nope. Well, not one that you are searching for. I decided that it didn't matter. One day when we were all just laying around in some random clearing we had found, I came up with my answer. I was going to enjoy it while it lasted and hope that it lasts forever. I don't need reasons why I like being around the two of you, I know I do and that's good enough for me. Now if you asked why I like Shino-kun then I could give you millions of reasons. She stated with a small grin. I bet you could. Naruto then gave a short laugh. But I'm the same way about Tenten-chan, I guess. I know I like her, but I don't know if I'll ever have the nerve to tell her. It's odd hearing you say that. Normally you would say anything to anyone, consequences be damned, but now you can't tell a girl you and I have been best friends with for 8 years that you like her. She said softly as she found another root and laid back like Naruto had. Making fun of the Hokage is one thing. Teasing Anko Ni-chan and Kurenai is one thing. Telling a girl that you like her is an entirely different thing. Commented Naruto while Hinata just shook her head. The two stayed like this until Iruka began calling names. One by one students were called back into the room and one by one they came out smiling while holding their hit-IA tightly in their hand. Hyuga Hinata. Iruka called. Wish me luck. Hinata muttered as she stood and brushed herself off. Like you need it. Replied Naruto with a bright smile. Hinata smiled at him and accidentally kicked him in the side as she walked past him on her way back into the room. Not fair. Naruto shouted only to reserve a rude finger gesture in return. This of course made Naruto laugh loudly as he turned to watch the clouds again. Hinata could be so different yet still so much the same as she was all those years ago. It was only a few minutes before Hinata came barreling out of the room and back towards Naruto, who she jumped on as soon as she made it. I did it. She shouted as she continued to jump on Naruto. Okay, please stop jumping on me. He yelled. Oh sorry. She said sheepishly as she sat down beside him. It's no problem. Oh, and great job Hinata-chan. He replied brightly. I'm so happy. She cried as she looked like she wanted to start jumping on him again. That's fine. You be happy all you want as long as you don't jump on me. He teased. Midarashi Naruto. Iruka called. My turn. He said as he got to his feet and messed up Hinata's hair before running away from the now angry Hyuga. I'll get you. They heard as the door to the room closed. Do you mind if I stay here for a few hours? Naruto asked nervously while watching the door. Yes we do. Besides, you probably deserve whatever it is she is going to do to you. Iruka said with a smile. I'm hurt. What have I ever done that would make you think such a thing? He asked. The many to list right now. Please show us the jutsus. Sure thing. Naruto said happily. In quick succession, Naruto showed them every jutsu they wanted to see. Alright Naruto. You pass. Stated Iruka before he grabbed a headband and threw it to the blonde demon vessel. Thanks for everything Iruka-sensei. He called out as he ran from the room and straight into a still angry Hinata. Hello Hinata-chan. Don't you look wonderful? He said nervously as Hinata slowly advanced on him. I told you I would get you Naruto-kun, and now I will. She said softly, but Naruto knew that it wasn't her usual soft tone of voice. Please don't kill me. I'll let you mess up my hair. He offered. Hinata paused at this. Naruto hated when people messed up his hair because it was now down to his waist and very hard to get untangled. This was a chance she couldn't pass up. Deal. Sighing Naruto pulled out his ponytail and sat down on the ground in front of Hinata. With childlike glee, Hinata began to mess up Naruto's hair to the best of her ability, which, as it turns out, is pretty good. By the end of it Naruto and Hinata both looked like fools before they began brushing their hair straight again. This act took up the remainder of the test and as Hinata put Naruto's hair back into a ponytail, Iruka dismissed them with instructions to be back there tomorrow morning at 8 to get put into their teams and to meet their new sensei. Naruto, can I see you for a moment? Asked their other instructor Mizuki. Sure. Hinata-chan, can you go on without me? He asked. No problem. Bye. She said before hugging him tightly before running off to her house. Once she was gone Naruto turned back to Mizuki and asked. What can I do for you, Mizuki-sensei? I know that you are at the top of your class and I am supposed to ask you if you want to take an extra test. Mizuki explained. There are no other tests, Kurenai or Ni-chan would have told me. I wonder what he's playing at. Thought Naruto before saying. I would love to. Good. Now here is what you do said Mizuki as he began explaining to Naruto the goal and rules of the test. I can't do that. When should I start? Naruto asked while inside he was shouting traitor at the man. You can start whenever you want, but it has to be done by tonight. Mizuki said before disappearing with a slight smirk on his face. That demon brat will do all the work and then I'll get the rewards. He thought. As soon as the man was gone Naruto dropped his fake smile and an angry look spread over his face. Naruto might not have liked most of the villagers, but Konohagakure was still his home and he hated traitors more than the villagers. With one last glare at the spot where Mizuki had been standing Naruto disappeared and reappeared in front of the Hokage and a large group of jounins which included Kurenai. They must be getting ready to pick their teams. Naruto thought. "Can I help you, Naruto?" asked the Hokage calmly while some of the Jounin sneered at the demon. "Yes. I have to talk to you about something," Naruto said firmly. "Can it wait?" asked the third Hokage. "No. It's far more important than picking genin teams," said Naruto. "What would you know, you little shit?" snapped one of the Jounins. "I know that if you speak to him like that again you will die," said Kurenai darkly. This seemed to shut up any Jounin who seemed to have problem. Standing slowly, the Hokage walked with Naruto into a side room. "What is it?" asked the Hokage. He knew that Naruto never messed around when it came to important matters, and if he said something was important then it was. "Mizuki approached me after the exam and asked if I wanted to take a special test," Naruto said calmly. "And what is this special test?" "He wants me to steal the scroll of seals from you. My guess is that he wants to steal it from me and flee the village. I wanted to tell you so you knew why I stole it," Naruto explained. "So you are going to steal it?" stated the Hokage calmly. "Well yeah. I can learn some cool new jutsus while I'm waiting for Mizuki to show up. After I get rid of him then I'll bring it back. You know that if you tried to stop him now it would be his word against mine and you know who they would believe," Naruto said softly. The Hokage closed his eyes and sighed. He did know who everyone would believe. Most everyone in the village would take Mizuki's side simply because the demon must be lying. He on the other hand trusted Naruto with his life. "I'll agree to this, but I must forbid you from reading anything in that scroll about your seal. It would take a seal master to understand it and you might do something just by reading it. Please follow this one rule, Naruto." "I will, Jai-san. Can you get it for me?" Naruto asked. The Hokage simply reached behind him and seemed to take a random scroll off of a large pile of nameless scrolls. "This is the scroll," he said as he handed Naruto the scroll. Naruto looked at it and snorted with laughter. Who puts the forbidden scroll on the front of a scroll of unimaginable power? Did the creator want people to try and steal it? "My senseis had a very odd sense of humor," said the Hokage with a sigh. "Thanks, Jai-san," said Naruto before he disappeared with the scroll and reappeared the middle of a clearing in the woods to the east of the village. Naruto sat down against a tree and began to read. As the Hokage walked out of the room alone the Jounins looked at him questioningly. "Don't worry about it. Young Naruto was just bringing something important to my attention. Now then, who has first pick?" he asked. "I do," said Kurenai happily. She got to pick her entire team first because she had beaten the other Jounin senseis at poker the night before. Contrary to popular opinion, teams were not selected by some highly advanced system. Most of the time the Jounin sat around playing cards while thinking of which of the available graduates would give them the least amount of headaches or which were the least likely to try and kill each other. "So who do you want?" asked the Hokage. "I want Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Mitarashi Naruto," she stated while most of the group looked confused. "It is obviously a scouting team, but Mitarashi threw everything off." "Why him?" asked a large muscular Jounin named Asuma. The lit cigarette hanging from his lips defied all logic by not falling as he spoke. "Naruto told me this morning that he wanted to be on my team with Hinata and Shino. I, like the rest of you, was confused until I heard his reasoning. He told me that a team that is too specified, like our scout teams, have a history of being easily beaten. If you were to add more power to the team, in this case Naruto, then they would have a better chance of getting out of a fight alive." He also brought up his field of work. He told me that a torture and interrogation specialist would do very well on a scout team because if they came across an enemy shinobi, then they might get the info they needed without having to go dangerously far into enemy territory. I had to ask myself how someone who had not even graduated from the academy thought of this when no one else could. Plus, he is at the top of his class in every field including tracking and stealth. He can also summon snakes which he told me could be used as a means of gathering info. As I said, I want Naruto, Shino, and Hinata. She explained while most of the Jounins looked put out that Konohagakure's demon brat had thought of something like this when they never did. "Alright. Teammate will be Mitarashi Naruto, Kami help you, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburame Shino under Yuhi Kurenai," said the Hokage, while Kurenai laughed a little at the Kami help you part. "I want Uchiha Sasuke, Inyazuka Kiba, and Haruno Sakura," stated a lazy-looking gray-haired Jounin. "Team 7 will be Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Inyazuka Kiba under Hada Kakashi," said the third as he wrote the team down in a large scroll like he had done with Kurenai's team. "I'll take the Ino Shikacho team," said Asuma. "Team 10 is going to be Yamanaka Ino, Akimichi Choji, and Nara Shikamaru under Sarutobi Asuma," said the third Hokage. This went on until everyone was picked. Once it got dark the Hokage called for every shinobi in the village to search for Naruto because he had stolen the scroll of seals. He also held Anko and Kurenai back to explain what was really going on. "Thank you for telling me, Hokage-sama. Now I'll only hurt him instead of killing him," said Anko as she and Kurenai went off to pretend to look for Naruto. "Naruto, you idiot, where are you?" Iruka asked himself as he ran through the woods looking for his favorite student. Finally, Iruka found Naruto at the side of a clearing, panting from exhaustion with a scroll tied to his back. "I found you," he shouted, causing Naruto to jump. "I guess you did," he said with a nervous laugh. He hadn't been planning on someone else finding him before Mizuki did. "Well, that's okay. Now I can show you my new move and I'll pass this test," he said while using the lie he had been told. "What do you mean test?" asked Iruka. "Mizuki-sensei told me that if I stole this scroll and could learn one move from it, then I would pass the extra test," explained Naruto. "That's why he looked exhausted. Has he been training the whole time?" Iruka thought before his eyes widened and he pushed Naruto out of the way as a hail of kunai rained down upon him. "Give me the scroll, Naruto," ordered Mizuki as he stood tall on a branch of a nearby tree. "Why did you do that to Iruka-sensei?" asked Naruto as he played innocent. "Naruto, Mizuki tricked you into stealing the scroll. Don't give it to him no matter what," shouted Iruka as he sank down the side of a small shack he had been leaning on. "Naruto, there is no point in you having it. If you hand it over I'll tell you the truth about who you are," offered Mizuki with a smirk. It was then that Iruka caught on to Naruto's little game. There was a reason, of course, why he had been selected among his peers to work as an academy instructor. There was also the fact that he had known the young blonde for many years and had learned how to read the young man so that he knew when to expect one of his pranks. "No. You can't," he shouted as he played his part. "The truth. What are you talking about?" demanded Naruto. "Stop it, Mizuki. You know it's forbidden," shouted Iruka while inside he was laughing his ass off while wondering what Naruto had planned. "The truth is that you are in fact the nine-tailed fox that attacked Konohagakure 12 years ago," he said darkly. Naruto then let loose a blood-curdling scream as he sank to his knees and pounded his fist into the ground. "Why?" he shouted in a long drawn-out breath. Iruka was trying very hard not to laugh as Naruto overacted. "Naruto, that was horrible," he said calmly. Naruto suddenly stopped screaming and looked at Iruka and smiled. "Really? I thought that I would go for the dramatic approach." "No, it was defiantly way over the top," said Iruka with mock sadness. "What is going on here?" yelled Mizuki. "I knew you were a traitor since you asked me to take the test. I told the Hokage and he let me play my little game, and as for the fox, I've known about him since I was 6 years old. Now, come down here so I can kill you," said Naruto calmly. Mizuki gave twisted smirk before he said. "Like you could kill me. I'll kill you both and take the scroll anyway." "Whatever," said Naruto calmly as Mizuki jumped down from the tree and unhooked a Fuma shuriken from his back. Naruto held his fingers in front of his face in a cross shape and said, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu Shadow Clone Technique." Then suddenly Mizuki was surrounded by 5 Narutos. He mastered a B-rank jutsu that most jounin can't use in a matter of hours, thought Iruka as he watched in awe as the clones and Naruto began forming Marhan seals. "Senijashu," they cried as 3 snakes shot out of each of their sleeves and sank their fangs into Mizuki. Getting bit by 30 highly poisonous snakes, and all Mizuki could do was make a slightly anticlimactic grunting sound before he fell over died. With their job done, the clones and snakes disappeared and the real Naruto walked over to Iruka and helped him to his feet. "Come on, Iruka-sensei. Let's get you to the hospital, and after that I can get killed by Anko ni-chan for not telling her about my plan beforehand." "Poor kid," said Iruka as he and Naruto walked back towards the village while talking about how they thought Anko was going to kill him. After Naruto dropped Iruka off at the hospital, he used a body flicker to appear in the Hokage's office with a scroll. "Here you go, Jai-san," he said as he handed over the scroll. "This might be wishful thinking, but you didn't tell Anko ni-chan about this, did you?" "Yes, he did," said a voice from behind him. "Ni-chan," said Naruto happily while forgetting why he had been afraid. "I passed and I'm a shoe-in for Rookie of the Year, and Hinata-chan passed as well. I even killed that traitor Mizuki," he added slowly as he finally remembered why he didn't want Anko to know. "Oh, I know all about that little stunt," she growled. She gave the Hokage a curt nod before grabbing Naruto and disappearing, only to reappear outside their front door. She threw open the door and forced Naruto into the room where Kurenai was sitting, and her face made it clear that she was just as mad as Anko was. "Please don't hurt me. I still haven't told Tenten-chan that I love her," he pleaded as Anko threw him roughly into a chair as she and Kurenai stood in front of him. "Oh, we aren't going to kill you," said Anko with a wicked grin. "We are going to hurt you badly but not kill you," added Kurenai. But started Naruto before Anko cut him off. "How dare you do something like that without telling me?" she shouted. "Did you know what it felt like to hear that you had stolen a forbidden scroll? I thought you had ran away. I thought you would be killed by the council. I thought you had left me." For the first time in a long time Naruto saw tears in his Nichan's eyes and the reality of what he had done finally sank in. As if a giant weight had been dropped on him, his shoulders and head sank. He couldn't even stand to look at her, he felt so bad. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You damn well better be," she yelled as she wiped the tears from her cheeks roughly. "Would it help if I taught you the two jutsus I learned?" he offered weakly. "It might," Anko said as the corners of her mouth twitched. "I learned the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and the Bunshin Daibakuha apostrophe clone great explosion," said Naruto, who still sounded very upset with himself. "You learned them in one afternoon?" shouted Kurenai while at the same time Anko shouted, "I love you," before she pulled Naruto into a tight hug. "Does this mean I'm forgiven?" he asked softly. "If you teach me those two moves then yes, all is forgiven," said Anko cooed lovingly as she gently ran a hand over his head, petting him as if he were a dog. The only people who know how to use shadow clones were the Hokages and their students. This meant that the third Hokage, the Densetsu no Sannin legendary 3 shinobi, and Hada Kakashi were the only ones alive, besides Naruto, to know this move, and none of them would teach anyone. Also, an exploding shadow clone sounded way too cool for her to pass up. Kurenai just sighed and shook her head. Before she had gotten her hands on Naruto, Anko was thinking up many ways to punish him without killing him, and now she was holding him tightly with just a promise to teach her two new jutsus. "I said it before and I'll say it again. You two deserve each other," she muttered to where Anko and Naruto couldn't hear her. "So did you use them tonight?" asked Anko. "I used the Kage Bunshin with the Senijashu, it was so cool. I had 4 clones so I attacked with 30 snakes," he answered excitedly. "But one of the best things about shadow clones is that whatever they learn gets transferred to you once they disappear. This would make scouting even easier. And think of the training you could do if you created some clones and fought them. You would increase your proficiency in leaps and bounds," said Anko, who seemed just as excited. Kurenai was also excited by now when she remembered that Naruto and all of his clones were on her team. "This is going to be great," she said out loud. Are you so excited? Do you want to learn it too?" asked Naruto with a smile. "No, that's okay. I was just thinking about something else," she said quickly. At night Anko wouldn't let Naruto or Kurenai rest until she had mastered Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and Bunshin Daibakuha. She found that she could only make a maximum of 5 clones of either kind, while Naruto could make 30 without breaking a sweat. This didn't really bother her because when they sparred it would only help her and her chakra capacity. Finally at around 2 in the morning, Anko let them go to bed. She promised Naruto that she would get him up in the morning, while Kurenai muttered something like "it doesn't matter if he's there if I'm still asleep." Later that morning it was actually Naruto who woke up first. Once he had taken his shower and got dressed he went into Anko's room to wake her and Kurenai up. Now, he was used to seeing the two in different states of undress, but seeing them mostly naked while holding each other was enough for even Naruto's nose to bleed a little. Once he cleaned that up he walked over to the bed and gently shook Kurenai, who was the closest to him. "Hey, you two need to get up," he stated calmly. "Alright," she said sleepily as she started to wake up Anko while Naruto left them alone in the room. The next thing that happened scared Naruto far more than he was willing to admit. With a loud bang, a familiar brown-haired Kunoichi kicked in the door and immediately leapt on Naruto as soon as she caught sight of him. "Why didn't you tell me you passed?" shouted Tenten. The shock was enough to erase all traces of sleep from his system as he was now wide awake. "I'm sorry Tenten-chan. After I passed I had something I had to do. Please forgive me," Naruto said softly. Tenten then realized that she was straddling the object of her affection and with a deep blush she jumped to her feet and said, "Of course I'll forgive you. That is just cute enough to make me forget that you kicked in my door," stated Anko as she and Kurenai walked past them and into the kitchen. "Sorry about that," said Tenten sheepishly. "It's okay. Naru-chan, breakfast will be in a little bit and Tenten, you're more than welcome to stay," said Anko as she began cooking the food Kurenai handed her. "Come on," Tenten said happily as she grabbed Naruto by the hand and dragged him back to his room. After staying in Anko's room for almost a year, she finally set Naruto up in one of the extra rooms. The room was filled with scrolls, different personal effects, a large bed, a dresser, and a very large fan. But if you ask Tenten, the best part was his bear Kuma-chan. Tenten loved this bear and loved it even more once Naruto told her and Hinata the story behind it. She also heard the story about Kuma-chan being Naruto's top advisor once he became Hokage from Anko, who seemed to enjoy telling embarrassing stories to people they knew and in some cases to people they had only known long enough to get their names. As soon as she entered the room Tenten jumped into the bed and grabbed Kuma-chan. "I still can't believe that psycho, sadistic Mitarashi Naruto has a teddy bear named Kuma-chan," she teased softly as she laid on her back and held the bear in the air in front of her face. Naruto didn't hear this because all he could do was stare longingly at Tenten. He couldn't think of anything but how cute she looked, how sexy she was, how smart, funny, and strong she was. Just then Naruto seemed to remember something Hinata had told him one night a few years ago. You can't run away from your problems. He was sure that she had stuttered during it, but it was basically what she had said. She's right. Naruto thought. I have to tell her how I feel, and if she doesn't feel the same then at least I was honest with myself. Tenten-chan, can I talk to you? He asked nervously as he sat down on the edge of his bed. You already are but you can talk some more if you want. She teased while Naruto couldn't help but smile at her joke. Tenten-chan, I have known you for 8 years and for those 8 years you have been my best friend, along with Hinata-chan. But unlike Hinata-chan, I started having feelings for you that weren't for a best friend or Amato or Ni-chan in your case. I have been trying to tell you this for a while now, but I couldn't bring myself to tell you and have you not feel the same, but now I want to tell you, and if you don't feel the same then that's okay. Tenten-chan, I really like you, I may even love you. You have been there for me whenever I needed you. You are beautiful, smart, strong, funny, and you can also be as gentle as Hinata-chan when you want to be. I think you're perfect and he explained before Tenten cut him off by smashing her lips to his. Tenten pulled him on top of her as she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him. After a few minutes of utter bliss the two were brought back to reality, but a very amused-looking Anko and Kurenai. I believe he finally told her how he felt. Kurenai said with a giggle. And by the way they are making out I'd say she feels the same. Anko added. Please tell me my Ni-chan isn't standing in the doorway. Naruto begged Tenten. She looked over his shoulder to find the two looking at them with large smiles on their faces. Laying her head back down on the bed, Tenten looked him in the eyes and said. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun but she is. Naruto blushed a deep red as he got off of Tenten and turned and pushed the two laughing females out of his room. That was embarrassing. He said as he shut the door and leaned back against it. I like you too by the way. Tenten said as she got out of the bed and wrapped her arms around him and leaned her head on his chest. Would you like to be my girlfriend? He asked shyly. That depends. Tenten said with a smile. On? Whether or not you will kiss me again. She explained. Naruto smiled down at her and slowly brought his lips back to hers. This time the kiss was very soft and gentle as opposed to the rough and needy kiss they had shared a few moments ago. As he kissed her he could taste cinnamon on her lips. He knew both she and Hinata loved cinnamon rolls and she must have had some before she came and broke down their door. Once the two finally separated, Tenten sighed contentedly and said. Yes, I will be your girlfriend. Let's go get some breakfast. Although you might not need it since you had cinnamon rolls already this morning. He teased as he opened his door. How did you? She was going to ask before it clicked and she started blushing heavily but smiling nonetheless. It's about time. I was about to go in there with a bucket of water. Said Anko, who Naruto could tell wasn't going to let them live this down for a long time. After the amount of times I've caught you and Kurenai in the couch, I think you can spot me a few times. Naruto said calmly as he began to eat his normal breakfast. An extra large bowl of ramen, a large plate of dango, and a large plate of eggs. Tenten snickered at the two as the proverbial rug was pulled out from under them. Shut up Tenten. Said Anko with a pout. This time Kurenai joined in on teasing her. Aw, you poor baby. She said as she lightly pinched Anko's cheeks. Stop that. She shouted but she laughed all the same. Now, are you two dating now? Yes. Answered Naruto firmly and with only a hint of a blush in his cheeks. Well good. Now maybe you two will stop dancing around each other. Said Anko. We weren't that bad. Said Naruto defensively. Tenten on the other hand didn't look like she believed that. Were we really? Yes. It was cute for a while, but then it started getting pathetic. We were planning on locking you in a closet if you didn't get together soon. Said Anko. We could still lock you in a closet if you wanted us to. Offered Kurenai while she and Anko laughed at the blush that crept onto the thoughtful-looking faces of Naruto and Tenten. Shut up you two. Shouted Naruto. But Naru-chan, don't you want to be in a closet with your girlfriend? Asked Anko innocently. Of course I mean, shut up. He shouted as he turned away from Tenten as his slip-up caused him to have all kinds of thoughts that were causing his nose to bleed a little. Can we please talk about something else? Asked Tenten pleadingly. While she was a little embarrassed from their teasing, she was also very happy to finally be dating Naruto and to know that he liked her as much as he did. Okay, we'll leave you two alone for now. Said Kurenai softly while Anko agreed but didn't look happy about it. Fine. Are you excited about finding out who is on your team? Anko asked Naruto. Naruto nodded as he sighed in relief that the teasing was over for now. Yes. I really hope I get the team I told you two about yesterday. What team would that be? Asked Tenten. I want to be on a team with Hinata-chan, Shino, and Kurenai. he answered as his eyes gleamed with excitement at the possibility. Kurenai smiled slightly at this, and while she knew who was on his team, she had decided that it would be better as a surprise than for her to tell him. That would be a pretty strong scout team, said Tenten thoughtfully. I never knew why there weren't more people like you, Anko, and Ibiki on scout teams. I mean, a scout team's objective is to gather info, and who better to do that than someone who is well versed in torture and interrogation. Anko sighed and turned to Kurenai. We really need to start listening to the younger shinobi's suggestions. To which Kurenai simply nodded in agreement. Why? Asked Naruto. Most veteran shinobi don't believe that new genin or even experienced genin have anything worthwhile to say. None of us had ever thought of putting an interrogation specialist on a scout team, and now that was suggested we can't figure out why we hadn't. Explained Kurenai. And while it would work out better, there just isn't a lot of people willing to do what we do. Ibiki, Naru-chan, and I are only 3 of the few in the village that are willing to do this job, and of the ones that will even fewer of them are any good at it. Finished Anko. You mean that the same shinobi that can be called on to kill children don't want to interrogate someone? Asked Tenten, who couldn't seem to figure out their reasoning. I don't know. Some people are just weird. Answered Anko while Naruto and her smiled at each other. Calling someone else weird was always a good joke for them, seeing as the two were as strange as they come. Yeah, and you two are so very normal. Said Kurenai dryly. Well, if that is how you feel, then I'm leaving. Stated Naruto pompously as he stood. I'll walk with you to the academy. Tenten said as she and Naruto disappeared in a swirl of leaves only to appear right outside the fence. Once they started walking, Tenten slid her hand into Naruto's and leaned against him. I was so nervous right before I started to tell you, and now look at us. Commented Naruto as he raised their hand so that she could look at them. I am so glad you did. I was just about to start yelling at you for not asking me out. She joked. Knowing you, you probably would have. Then you would beat me up and drag my body on a date. Said Naruto lightly. You always were forceful when it came to something you wanted. And in this case I really wanted you. Tenten replied softly. The two walked slowly while speaking quietly before they reached the academy and found a smiling Hinata waiting for them. How do you do that? Asked Naruto. No matter when he came to school, she was always there, and wherever he would arrive at she would be there. Wouldn't you like to know? But the important question is, what is this? She asked as she arched one of her elegant eyebrows and pointed to their hands. Well, Tenten-chan decided to break down my front door this morning because I hadn't told her I passed the test. While we were in my room, I remembered something you said about not running away from your problems, so I told her how I felt, and she jumped on me and, rather forcefully, told me she liked me too. Explained Naruto with a bright smile while Tenten blushed guiltily. Sounds like her. Teased Hinata. So how much did Anko-senpai and Kurenai-senpai make fun of you? At this, Naruto and Tenten both sighed. More than I hoped they would. Answered Naruto. Hinata shook her head and replied. I thought you knew them better than that, Naruto-kun. Shut up, Hinata-chan. Said Naruto, but with a smile. I've got to go meet the two freaks in the prick. Said Tenten sadly as she squeezed Naruto's hand. I'll just wait inside. Hinata said quickly before she ran into the room. I'm not sure who I get or how long the meeting will be, but do you want to come over tonight? Hinata-chan will more than likely be there as well if she and I make it onto the same team. He asked. I'll be there. She promised before kissing Naruto lightly on the lips and running off to meet her team. Naruto couldn't help but watch her as she left. More accurately, he watched certain parts of her as she left. I'm in trouble. He thought as he finally turned and walked into the classroom. This time the class stopped talking and stared at him in shock. Who are you? Shouted Inyazuka Kiba. This boy was almost as loud as Lee and Guy, but only half as weird looking. He always wore a bulky coat and always had his companion with him. The Inyazuka clan specializes in man-beast styles jutsus. For this reason they were bonded with a dog at the moment of birth. Akamaru, Kiba's dog, was usually found sleeping on top of Kiba's head. What are you talking about, dog boy? Asked Naruto. Naruto never walks in through the door. So who are you? He shouted. Naruto sighed and asked. What do I have to do to prove that I am me? Kiba started thinking, but it was Sakura who asked the question. Who do you like? Tenten-chan. Naruto said quickly. There. Naruto never admits to liking Tenten. Kiba shouted again, and this time Naruto's sweat dropped. I admit it now because we started dating. He shouted back, but the class, minus Hinata and Iruka, looked largely unconvinced. Those two knew that it was Naruto, but they were too busy laughing at him to help. A likely story. Said Ino. Ino was a girl with long blonde hair and bright blue eyes, and she always wore a purple skirt and sleeveless shirt with wrappings around her torso and upper legs. That's it. Naruto shouted before he bit his thumb and flew through some hand signs. Kuchi's no jutsu summoning technique. With a large puff of smoke, a very large snake appeared. The snake was easily long enough to wrap around the room and large enough to eat any one of them without any trouble. The sudden appearance of the snake caused many to scream and Ino and Sakura to jump onto their desks as if that would put them out of reach of the giant snake. "Naruto, why have you summoned me?" asked the snake as it lowered its large head to Naruto's. "I finally walked through the door and they didn't believe that it was me," he shouted. The snake hissed a laugh before looking back to the class. "Would you like for me to eat them? It's been so long since you've summoned me to dispose of a foolish villager." "Sorry but I need them. But don't worry. I'm a genin now and I can summon you to eat my enemies," Naruto said happily. Most of the class knew that Naruto had killed any villager or shinobi he heard speaking ill of Anko and Kurenai, but they never knew how, and now that they did most of them wished they didn't. "Ijai-san told me to tell you that you and Anko are close to your rights," said the snake before he disappeared. "Yes," shouted Naruto after he heard the snake's message before grabbing Hinata and dancing around the room. "Naruto, what are your rights?" asked Iruka as the class settled down and took their seats. "When someone signs the snake contract they have to summon a lower level snake and prove to them that you are worthy. This is the only real way you can get to summon the boss or any of the higher level summons. Some people, like that fucker Orochimaru, ignore this and summon Manda whenever they want. This makes Manda very angry and if you can get him to listen to you then it costs a sacrifice of 100 men, but most of the time he will simply eat the summoner. Anko Ni-chan and I are close to our rights, meaning that we are close to being able to summon Manda without the sacrifice," Naruto explained happily while most were shocked at how harsh the snake contract was. "Anko-chan will be happy to hear that," said Kurenai as she and 8 other jounins walked into the room. "Class, these are the jounin senseis you will be paired with. Each 3-man team would go with their instructor after I finish listing everyone." "No would. Where the hell is Kakashi?" asked Iruka as he rubbed his head in frustration. "Probably reading porn," growled Kurenai while the other senseis inched away from her. It was very well known that Kurenai hated perverts and their preferred reading material. Well okay," said Iruka nervously before he started listing names and teams, most of which Naruto didn't pay attention to. Team 7 will Inyazuka Kiba, Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura under Hada Kakashi. "Yes," screamed Sakura as she jumped to her feet, pumped her fist into the air. "I'm glad you approve, Sakura, now please sit down," Iruka said in exasperation. Team 8 will be Hyuga Hinata, Abiram Shino, and here he trailed off as Naruto and Hinata leaned forward in suspense. "Does anyone need a bathroom break?" he asked. Naruto jumped to his feet and shouted. "You read that fucking name right the fuck now, you fucking asshole." "And Mitarashi Naruto under Yuhi Kurenai?" Iruka read quickly. "Yes," shouted Hinata and Naruto before hugging each other happily. Then the last named clicked and Naruto turned to his new sensei. "You bitch. Why didn't you tell me?" he shouted. "That is bitch sensei to you, worm," sneered Kurenai playfully. "And I didn't tell you because that would ruin the surprise." "If you 3 are done?" asked Iruka weakly before he read Team 9 quickly as Naruto and Kurenai turned their glares towards him. Team 10 will be Yamanaka Ino, Akimichi Choji, and Nara Shikamaru under Sarutobi Asuma. That is everyone, so please follow your sensei, except for Team 7 who will be waiting a while for your team meeting." And with that Team 8 followed their new sensei to a nearby training ground where they began their meeting. Kurenai chose to stand and Shino leaned back against a large tree while Naruto and Hinata sat down near the quiet boy, Hinata sitting a little closer than necessary. To start off with, I want you to introduce yourselves. I want your names, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams or goals for the future, and what your specialties are," Kurenai said with a warm smile. "Naru-chan, you can start." "I told you to stop calling me that," he shouted while Kurenai just smiled. "My name is Mitarashi Naruto. I like my Ni-chan, Tenten-chan and her family, Hinata-chan, Kurenai-sensei, Ibiki, the 3rd Hokage, and Iruka. I also like training, sparring with Hinata-chan and Tenten-chan, and ramen, dango, and eggs. My dislikes are unjust prejudices towards female shinobi, my Ni-chan, and myself. I also dislike the Uchiha team and most of the villagers in this village. My hobbies are spending time with those I like, training with Anko Ni-chan, and working alongside Anko Ni-chan and Ibiki on the rare times they will let me. My dream is to become Hokage and prove to everyone that I am more than they see me as. My skills are in torture, interrogation, snake and poison jutsus, poisons themselves, and taijutsu." "Mr. Silent, you're up," said Kurenai to Shino. "I am Abiram Shino. I like my insects. I dislike people who would kill an insect for no reason. My hobbies are collecting more insects. My dream is to become a worthy leader of my clan. I am skilled in tracking and my family's jutsus," Shino said quietly and without ever changing his tone. "No need to get too worked up, Shino," joked Naruto. Shino's only reply was pushing his sunglasses back up his nose. Shino was tall for his age, just above Naruto in height. He had slightly pale skin and black hair. The only thing they could tell that he wore was his black round sunglasses, a long grey trench coat, not unlike Naruto's, but with a higher collar that was always closed, and a pair of black boots. "Hinata, go ahead," Kurenai said once she saw that Shino wasn't going to say anything. "My name is Hyuga Hinata. My likes are Naruto-kun, Anko-senpai, Tenten-chan and her family, Kurenai-sensei, flower pressing, the insects in the garden who help it grow, and a certain other person." At this she glanced at Shino quickly. "My dislikes are how my family treats me and how the village treats Naruto-kun and Anko-senpai. My hobbies are mostly the same as my likes, plus spending time and training with Naruto-kun and Tenten-chan. My dream is to prove that I am not the mistake and failure my clan seems to think I am. I am good at my family's taijutsu style and scouting." Nodding her head, Kurenai said. "My name is Yuhi Kurenai. My likes are Anko-chan, Ibiki-kun, Naru-chan and his friends. My dislikes are a lot like Naruto's. My hobbies are creating new genjutsus and going out and sparring with Anko-chan. My dream is to live with Anko-chan and prove that females are just as good as males when it comes to being a shinobi. I am a genjutsu mistress and I am known as the best in Konohagakure. My taijutsu and ninjutsus are jounin level and my tracking skills rival that of the Inuzukas." "So what now?" asked Naruto. "Now I shock you all by telling you that you aren't really genin," she said happily while her team varied in their reactions. Shino simply raised both of his eyebrows, Hinata's eyes went wide, and Naruto stared at her with his mouth open. "What the hell do you mean? We passed that fucking test," he finally shouted. "That test was to get rid of the truly hopeless cases. Each jounin sensei is to give their own test to see whether or not they believe their team is ready or if they want to even bother. If you pass then you will become genin. If you fail you will go back to the academy," she explained with an Anko-like smirk. "Our chances?" asked Shino. "Very low. More often than not only 3 teams will pass their sensei's test. I will give you one hint. In the shinobi world things are rarely what they seem," she answered. "Now, this is training ground 8. If you pass my test and become teammate, then this will be our training ground. Meet me here tomorrow morning at 5 AM and don't be late." And with that she disappeared. The 3 would-be genin stared at the spot she had been standing in disbelief. "Well that sucks," shouted Naruto. He knew that he could hold his own against any genin or chunin, but having to take a test from a jounin would even push his skills to the limit. "Oh well, who wants to go get something to eat? My treat." "Okay," said Hinata softly. Shino looked at him for a few moments before nodding. "I'll get us there faster," Naruto said as he placed a hand on their shoulders before disappearing. "I should have known," said Hinata once they appeared in front of the Ichiraku ramen bar. "Shino, do you like ramen?" Naruto asked as the 3 walked in and sat down as the counter. "It is acceptable," he answered. "Well then you have never had my ramen," said Tucci as he came to take their order. "I have not," admitted the boy. "I'll have 3 bowls of beef ramen, 3 of shrimp and 3 of your chili ramen," ordered Naruto as he all but drooled on the counter. "1 miso ramen please," ordered Hinata. "I will have 1 bowl of beef ramen and 1 of the chili ramen," ordered Shino. "Coming right up," Tucci said brightly as he walked back to begin on their orders. "Hello Naruto-kun, Hinata-chan," said AM as she came out of the back and saw Naruto and Hinata, and once she spotted Shino she asked. "And who is this?" "This is Shino, our soon-to-be teammate." "Shino, this is AM-chan. She and her 2 sen own this place," said Naruto. "So this is Shino," she said with a smile as she shot Hinata a quick look. "Do you know me?" he asked. "I know of you. Some of our customers have spoken of you and in glowing terms might I add," she said while Hinata gave her a pleading look. He said simply before falling silent. It wasn't long after that when Tucci brought out their orders and the 3 began eating. Shino was a little shocked by the speed at which Naruto ate, but he didn't say anything. He also wondered how he was so fit if he ate like this all the time. He then turned his attention to his own food and as he took a bite of his ramen, he couldn't help but say. "This is very good. Gucci-san makes the best ramen in the village," said Hinata after she swallowed what she had in her mouth. "Does he always eat like that?" he asked Hinata. Hinata turned and saw Naruto starting on his 5th bowl and said. "Yes. Naruto-kun has a very high metabolism and can eat like that and never feel the adverse effects like weight gain." "You have known each other for a long time, haven't you?" he asked. He didn't say it, but this was the most he had spoken to anyone outside of his family, but he figured that with Naruto on his team, he was going to have to get used to speaking more and he found that Hinata was very easy to talk to. "Since we were 4. I met him when he beat up some bullies on the playground near the Hokage Tower. I was being picked on and Naruto-kun can and chased them away," Of course he stabbed one of them with a kunai and kicked the other two between the legs before they would leave. Answered Hinata while Naruto gave him a new order of ramen. So he has always been rather violent. For the most part. Being raised by Anko-senpai has brought a lot of that out, but believe me when I say that Naruto-kun has had a very hard life and, like Anko-senpai, he uses his work as a means to vent his anger. He is also very kind to those who get to know him and he will defend you from anything from someone calling you names to someone threatening your life. Hinata said quietly so that only Shino could hear. Will he tell me about his life? He asked. Once he gets to know you and you gain his trust. She answered. I am glad you are on our team, Abiram-san. I am starting to like this team as well, and please, call me Shino. He said before he pushed his two empty bowls away. He never noticed the light blush and pleased look on Hinata's face. By the end of the meal Shino had finished his 2 bowls, Hinata her 1, and Naruto finally stopped after an even 12. All in all Tucci was more than happy to take Naruto's money once they decided to leave. I must be going. I am looking forward to working with you. Said Shino as he gave them a slight bow before walking off. Hinata-chan, Tenten-chan is coming over later, do you want to come? Naruto asked. No, I think I'll let you two be alone. She said suggestively. I never thought that I would say this but Hinata-chan, you pervert. Nothing like that will be happening. Naruto said firmly. Hinata looked at him and gave him her best teary, doe-eyed look and asked innocently. Naruto-kun, what are you talking about? I just thought that I would leave you alone to talk. What did you think I meant? I know damn well what you meant so don't try and use those cute eyes of yours to get out of this one. Seriously, if you want to come over you're more than welcome to. He said as they stared towards Hinata's house nonetheless. No. All perverted joked aside, I really do want to give you some time alone with your new girlfriend. She said calmly. Thanks. Naruto said as he sighed in relief. I do want you there, but I also want to be alone with Tenten-chan. I tell you what. I'll talk to Shino and see how he feels about you. Then maybe we can go on a double date. That would be nice. Said Hinata shyly as they reached her home. Well, have fun, but not too much fun. She teased before hugging him and walking inside. Naruto watched her until the door closed before he used the body flicker to appear right outside his front door. Once he entered he found Anko and Kurenai sitting at the kitchen table with Tenten showing her pictures of Naruto as he grew up. Anko had always seemed to know that the two would get together, so she hid some stories and pictures from Tenten until they got together. This photo album just happened to be the one from just after he had met Tenten, and while he didn't believe that it was terribly embarrassing, it was still something Naruto wished Tenten hadn't seen. Do you live to embarrass me? He asked his Ni-chan and Kurenai as he walked around behind them to see what they were looking at. Once he saw the pictures he groaned and blushed. He had been wrong. These were some of the most embarrassing pictures of him there were. They showed the very first time Anko had let Ibiki and Kurenai babysit him when he was still 4 and in the picture Naruto was running naked from Ibiki who seemed to be about ready to cry. Yes I do. Answered Anko calmly while Tenten looked up at him and smiled. Naruto glared at her playfully before saying. I got my team. So who is it? Kurenai-chan wouldn't tell us. Anko shouted with a glare to her best friend and lover. I got Hinata-chan, Shino, and Kurenai. He answered happily while Tenten cheered and hugged him. You never told me. Anko shouted at Kurenai. I wanted it to be a surprise. She said defensively. Besides, it was worth it to see his and Hinata's faces once they heard. Anko looked excited and asked. Did you get a picture? Of course. Kurenai said as if it were obvious. Hey Kurenai, would you please tell me what test you are going to give us? Naruto begged. Kurenai shook her head and said. Nope. If you are going to be on my team then I want you to earn it. Now why don't you take Tenten into your room and we'll call you once dinner is ready. Okay. Said Naruto quickly as Tenten stood and the two walked into his room. He was a little caught off guard when Tenten pulled him into a kiss as soon as the door was closed. The two continued to kiss as they made their way towards the bed before Naruto backed into it and fell back while pulling Tenten down with him. Hello. He said breathlessly as Tenten rolled off of him and laid down beside him. Hi. She replied softly. Is Hinata-chan coming? No. She said that she wanted to give was time alone. She also made some perverted comments about us being alone. He answered with a slight smile. You know you caused me some problems today. How? I wasn't thinking right after you left and I walked into the classroom through the door. No one would believe that I was me until I summoned a snake. He said. Did I mess you up that badly? Asked Tenten innocently. Yes, but it was rather nice. He teased. I'm glad because I don't plan on stopping so you were going to have to suffer though or kisses if you didn't like it. Then it's a good thing I do then. Tenten then rolled back on top of him and started kissing him again. She surprised him when she gently ran her tongue over his lips, asking permission to enter. Once the shock went away, he was more than willing to let her do whatever she wanted. As soon as their tongues touched, Naruto and Tenten both moaned into each other's mouth before deepening the kiss as much as they could. Before long, Naruto was having blood flow problems and pulled away. Tenten looked confused and a little hurt until Naruto said, "Tenten-chan, we need to stop or something might happen that we aren't ready for." Tenten looked confused until she saw the slight bulge in his pants and blushed. "Sorry about that," she said shyly. "Believe me, it's no problem, but my body is far more willing to continue than I am ready for." Naruto was as he turned on his side and faced Tenten. "I'm not ready for much more than kissing myself. I didn't know you would react like that," she said softly. Naruto laughed a little and asked, "How else would I react when my beautiful girlfriend is laying on top of me with her tongue in my mouth? Not to mention the effects my hormones are having on my mind and body." "Are you saying that you didn't like it?" she asked lightly. "Hell no. I loved it, but that seemed to cause the problem to begin with," he said with a laugh. "Well, I for one am glad you find me so attractive," she said with a smile as she moved in closer to him and laid against his chest. "Tenten-chan, you are beautiful," Naruto stated. "Do you like me more than Kuma-chan?" she asked with a completely straight face. "Jealous that she gets to sleep with me?" he teased while Tenten's mask seemed to be breaking. "I don't know. Kuma-chan has always been with me, but you are human and dead sexy. She is a teddy bear while you are my girlfriend, and again, you're human. She is always nice and quiet while you made me eat dirt as a kid." At this, Tenten began laughing. She had almost forgotten that she had done that, and now that she remembered, she laughed like she had when it first happened. I see, can't believe you are remembered that," she said in between gasps for air as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Of course I remembered. I've been plotting my revenge all these years," he said evilly. Oh, really?" asked as she started to gain control over herself again. "Oh yes. I had to wait until we were alone and you trusted me before I could exact my unholy revenge," he stated. "And what is it?" she asked with a smile. "This," Naruto shouted as he hopped to his knees and began tickling her. Stop," she shouted as she began laughing loudly. "Never. This is revenge, unholy revenge at that. I can't just stop because you ask me," he said as he continued to tickle the defenseless girl, who was squirming and crying as she roared with laughter. "DP please," she shouted. "What's in it for me?" he asked as he moved up her sides, making her, if it were possible, laugh even harder. "A kiss?" she offered. "Okay," said Naruto as he suddenly stopped. "Why you ass?" said Tenten as she slapped him in the arm and wiped her eyes and cheeks. "You know you love me," he said in a sing-song tone of voice. "Yes I do, but I don't know why," she countered. "Then let me show you," he said before he gently pulled Tenten into another kiss. This kiss lasted until Kurenai knocked on the door and told them that dinner was done. Sighing softly, Naruto stood up and helped Tenten out of his bed before the two walked into the kitchen, where they found Anko and Kurenai looking at them with identical smirks on their faces. "You know, for making out there was a lot of laughing," Anko said offhandedly as they began to fill their plates. "We weren't making out," Naruto shouted before Tenten gave a small cough. Well, we weren't just making out. Naru-chan, I believe that it's about time we had a little talk. You see, when a man and a woman love." Kurenai started before Naruto jumped to his feet and shouted. "Leave us alone. Besides, you know damn well that I've already had that talk as you two were the ones that gave it to me. You just want to embarrass me." Anko suddenly looked highly offended. "How could you? We were just worried about you and you shouted us. We only had the best of intentions at heart." "And whose intentions were you serving?" he asked calmly, while Tenten snickered as the two older females suddenly looked uncomfortable. Anko knew they had been caught, so she decided to play her trump card. "Have you spoke with Tenten's parents about dating her yet?" she asked. As soon as the words were out of her mouth, both Tenten and Naruto dropped their chopsticks and paled. After one fearful look at her new boyfriend, Tenten asked. "Naruto-kun, do you want to talk to them when you walk me home?" Naruto looked thoughtful as he weighed his options. On one hand, he could go with Tenten, face her parents and probably come out of the discussion with a few cuts and bruises. On the other, he could let Tenten go home alone, which would upset her, and then he would have Anko, Kurenai, Hinata, Kenshin, Emi, and Tenten mad at him. Needless to say that it took him all of 2 seconds before he chose. "I'll speak with them when I walk you home," he stated firmly while Anko and Kurenai smiled approvingly and Tenten hugged him tightly before kissing him quickly on the cheek. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," she said softly. "It was a pretty easy decision to make. I can handle facing your Tusan and Kasan, but if I made you upset it would kill me, and I mean that both emotionally and physically, because Anko-ni-chan, Kurenai, and Hinata-chan would kill me if I hurt you." He reasoned while the three women laughed at this but couldn't help but agree. "Well, I'm glad you learned from your time with me," said Anko happily. "How could I not? If I messed up you would carve the correct answer into my hide. I wasn't that bad." "Need I remind you of the time I told you that you looked tired?" asked Naruto calmly. "No," muttered a defeated Anko. "Good. Now after dinner I want you to do your homework and go to bed," ordered Naruto playfully. "Okay," said Anko with an exaggerated pout. This pout quickly became a smile as she and Naruto began to laugh while Tenten and Kurenai started wondering why they loved them so much. The rest of dinner was great if anyone had asked Naruto and Tenten. Why was it great? Because Anko and Kurenai hadn't made fun of them for the rest of the meal. Naruto believed that it was because they knew what he was going to do after dinner and they were taking pity on him. Tenten thought this too, but she tried to convince herself that they were just nice. This tactic didn't work for very long. Finally the meal ended and Naruto and Tenten began walking back to her house while holding hands and talking about every little thing that came to mind. That was what was so great about talking with a best friend like Tenten or Hinata. They had known each other for 8 years and understood each other even when they said something that most people would have been insulted by. They each know the others inside and out and never got hung up on something that the other, mostly Naruto, had said. "Is it just me or do you look very beautiful tonight?" asked Naruto. "Are you saying that I look ugly every other night?" asked Tenten playfully. Naruto's eyes widened and he stammered for a few moments before he took a deep breath and said. "No. You look beautiful every day. What I meant was that it is nice to be with you and know that you like me. The last year has been torture for me. To know that I liked you and that I couldn't have you. You, Tenten-chan, are a tease." Tenten tried her best to look innocent at the accusation. "Whatever do you mean, Naruto-kun?" Naruto thought she looked very cute but he knew her well enough to know that she was never innocent. "You know damn well what I mean. The way you would walk so close to me and speak softly damn it," he shouted. At this Tenten looked very confused and startled. "What?" she asked quickly. "Nothing. I just realized that you did all those things because you liked me. How could I have not have seen it? You were distracted by my stunning good looks," joked Tenten. "How can you be so modest?" he asked with mock awe. "It's a gift. Whatever you say. I only wish I had noticed sooner. You know, you weren't the only one to miss the stolen looks and to misread the signs. You did all the things I did and I never put two and two together. Don't think about what could have been, Naruto-kun. It will only distract you from what is in front of you now." Naruto looked at Tenten and rose an eyebrow. "Where did that come from?" he asked. "I read it in a book once," she admitted with a slight blush. "Are you sure that the book wasn't actually a fortune cookie?" "Yes, I'm sure," Tenten shouted before punching him in the arm none too lightly. "Don't be a jerk, Naruto-kun," she added as she turned her back to him and huffed. "I'm not being a jerk. That did sound like something a fortune cookie would say. I wasn't trying to make fun of you, Tenten-chan. Please forgive me," he pleaded as he stepped up right behind her and wrapped his arms around her. He then kissed her softly on the back of her neck which caused her to shiver slightly. "That's not fair," she stated softly as she hugged Naruto's arms to her chest. "I know and I really wasn't trying to make fun of you," he said gently as he rested his chin on her shoulder and leaned his head against hers. "I know you weren't. Now, let's go tell my two-san that we are dating and hope that there is enough left of you to date afterwards. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Why couldn't your two-san be a seamstress or something and not a blacksmith with a house full of weapons?" asked Naruto weakly as he let her go and the two continued their walk towards her house. Once they were standing outside the front door Naruto turned and tried to run only to find Tenten standing there with her arms crossed. "Going somewhere?" she asked dangerously. I thought I saw a lost kitten. Come on, we have to save it," he said with as much enthusiasm as he could muster. Which wasn't a lot. Tenten did crack a smile at the lame excuse but she could play dirty. Giving him her best puppy dog look she asked. "Naruto-kun, why do you want to run? Don't you want to be with me? Won't you talk to my two-san if it means that we can be together?" Naruto's mouth opened and closed a few times before he sighed and his shoulders slumped. "You don't play fair. Come on," he muttered as he and the smiling Tenten walked into the house to find Imi and Kenshin talking while Kenshin polished a beautiful sword that made Naruto very nervous. "Ah-san, two-san. Naruto-kun wants to speak to you," said Tenten quickly before she ran from the room as fast as she could. Naruto watched her going in disbelief. She had left him alone to tell her two-san and Ka-san that they were dating. "She will pay," vowed Naruto before gulping as Imi and Kenshin looked at him questioningly. "Did you need something?" asked Imi while Naruto's eyes never strayed from the sword. "Why yes," said Naruto nervously. "You both have taken care of me for years while Anko ni-chan and Kurenai-sensei were away on missions. You know I love your family and think of it as my own, and that I would never do anything to harm a member of this family. This morning when Tenten-chan came over I finally told her how I felt and she told me that she felt the same. More like I since she ran out of here like a bat out of hell, wanted to tell you what we're dating and hope that you approve. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, Naruto watched Kenshin's grip on the sword tighten as he got to his feet and walked towards the much smaller Naruto. Even without any form of shinobi training, Kenshin's sheer size made him one of the most intimidating people in the village. At 6 feet 10 inches and 340 pounds of pure muscle, he was a sight to behold, and at this moment, Naruto wished he was anywhere else in the world. Even the jaws of the Kyuubi seemed like a much more inviting place than his current position in front of the massive blacksmith. "So, you want to date my Musume?" asked the hulking man. No," Naruto said nervously. "What?" asked Emi, who was surprised by his answer. "I'm not asking. I'm telling you that we are dating and while we would like your blessing, it is not something we need," stated Naruto firmly as he looked eyes with Kenshin while refusing to look away. "You've got some nerve, kid," he growled, and yet Naruto refused to budge. Even when Kenshin lifted the sword and swung it down towards his neck he didn't move. Finally a smile broke out across the man's face. "I'm glad you finally told her how you felt, because if I had to listen to another night of "Do you think Naruto-kun likes me or why won't he ask me out? Am I ugly? I swear I was going to go crazy." As soon as this was said Naruto let out a deep breath and looked about ready to faint. On shaky knees, he walked over to a chair and sat beside a smiling Emi. "You okay?" she asked sweetly. Naruto rolled his head to the side and looked at her. "Shut up." Emi just smiled and said. "For what it's worth I'm happy for the two of you. I was worried that you would never tell each other and be miserable for the rest of your life. So, did you kiss yet?" This question caught Kenshin's attention and Naruto to gain a glazed over look. "Yeah, and it was great. Tenten-chan is really sexy and a great kisser," he said dreamily before he remembered where he was and with whom he was speaking to. He jumped out of his seat just in time for a sword to slice it in two. With a fearful look around the room, Naruto took off out the door while Emi laughed loudly at her Shujin's cursing and the young man's sudden departure. Once Naruto was out the door Tenten hung her head out of her window and called out to him. Naruto was thankful for the fact that Tenten's window was larger than any other in the house as he jumped into the air and into her room. "How could you run off like that?" he hissed quietly as he and Tenten walked over to her bed and sat down. As to Anko's room being the opposite of what people might think, Tenten's was exactly what it should have been. The walls were painted a pale red and she had blueprints for weapon making hanging all over her walls, where most girls her age had posters of a band or the all-too-common poster of a popular male idol. The bed, dresser and mirror were all that was in there besides stacks of weapons and targets. "I'm sorry." I freaked out and ran. "Please forgive me," she pleaded as she took Naruto's hand in hers. "Of course I do and everything went fine until the part where your 2 cents split the chair I was sitting in two with that sword. Although I did have that coming," he said softly so that her parents didn't know he was still here. "How?" asked Tenten who couldn't see how Naruto deserved to be killed. Naruto blushed a little and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. "Well, your Kasan asked if we had kissed and I was so caught up in remembering our kisses that I told them that we had and that you were sexy and a great kisser." Now it was Tenten's turn to blush. She then gave Naruto a small smile and kissed him gently on the lips. In no time the two forgot where they were and began to explore each other's mouth with increasing vigor. Luckily the stairs in the home were squeaky and let the two teens know that Tenten's parents were coming up the stairs. Very quickly, Naruto jumped off of Tenten and out the window after a quick kiss and a promise to see her the next day. Before long Naruto was standing just inside his apartment while leaning against the door with an amused-looking Kurenai and Anko looking on. "You're not dead," stated Anko who tried to sound surprised. "No, but very nearly," muttered Naruto as he walked over to them and flopped down between them on the couch. "Tenten-chan ran for it as soon as we saw her parents and left me to talk to them. Everything went fine, I mean they gave their blessing and everything until Emi asked if we had kissed." By now Anko and Kurenai were both laughing and snickering respectively while Naruto ignored them and continued. "I'm still new to kissing, so I kind of forgot where I was and said that Tenten-chan was sexy and a great kisser." Emi just laughed, but Kenshin didn't find it at all funny. "So, after he sliced through my chair with a sword, I ran for it." Anko and Kurenai were both laughing loudly by the end of the story, and while they did feel sorry for Naruto, they simply found it entirely too funny not to laugh. "Don't worry. Kenshin might die soon. Other than that I don't see him forgetting what you said," said Anko in her own reassuring way. "I doubt it. Not many could kill him," argued Kurenai. "True. Naru-chan, it would be best to never go back over there again," joked Anko. "Some help you two are. I'm going to bed," he growled as he stood and stomped off towards his room only to stop as he reached his door. "Good night," he called back to them. "Good night," they shouted back. But then Naruto walked into his room and fell onto his bed in a very ungraceful way. Reaching out, Naruto turned on his fan and picked up Kuma-chan, and before saying, "I can't believe my luck. I'm dating Tenten-chan and I got the team I wanted. You are really turning out to be a good luck charm, Kuma-chan." Of course the bear said nothing, but Naruto didn't expect it to. With a content sigh, Naruto closed his eyes and enjoyed the wind blowing across his face and shoulders. It didn't take long before the droning sound of the fan combined with the relaxing feel of the wind caused Naruto fell asleep. What if Naruto x possessive Anko konoha end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.